being carted off. Or with Tua, it's being slung like that and then having a horrible freak thing happen where eventually there has to be some measure of not failing to be concerned for the health of the quarterback. I don't think we ever have to give up the humanity in that. It can be hard sometimes. If Patrick Mahomes gets knocked out of concussion protocol in a playoff game in a day where he didn't actually have a concussion, which is the reports of how it all went down with Teddy Bridgewater, we will all be furious. I will have a very bad day on the postgame show if the Chiefs lose that game because of concussion protocol. Now, they nearly lost a game doing that against the Browns, and then any given Sunday, et cetera, chokehold, loss of oxygen, not a concussion, whatever it was for Mahomes. We've been there in Kansas City. We've been close to seeing that happen. I'm not saying you have to suspend your humanity when you watch football and just make it gladiators and lions and dirt and blood. I don't think you have to do that at all. But I think whenever you're talking about not player safety, but penalizing players, when you're talking about player penalization, you eventually have to ask the question, did the defender do something here that they could have otherwise controlled? Or could the defender here have done something to make this a less violent moment without endangering themselves or doing something literally superhuman and beyond the laws of physics? If you're Chris Jones coming up behind Derek Carr, Chris Jones may have shifted his weight away from Carr as he was taking the football, and everyone was bracing themselves, Carr and Jones. There's nothing a defender can do there other than cease to play football. Tom Brady and Grady Jarrett. Grady Jarrett literally grabbed Tom Brady and sat him on his belly like you would if you were tackling a kid play wrestling in the living room, and then get them to the ground. Those are instances that are very, very obvious ones. But if you get to a point where it's not as obvious, it's a bang-bang play, or there is an injury to a quarterback, my barrier for penalization is not going to be, was the outcome of this negative? The barrier for judgment has to be, did the defender do something irresponsible? Did they fail to protect themselves and their opponent in a reasonable way? And whenever you just go, oh, ugly, scary, confusing, potentially dangerous hit to a quarterback being slung to the ground because the ground is a weapon in this sport, it's a bludgeoning force. Well, nothing I just said there justifies penalizing the other team for something happening in that sense. You have to be able to watch a replay or tell the pool reporter, whatever, you have to be able to say with a straight face, the defender did something wrong here. Chris Jones and Grady Jarrett did nothing wrong here. That might be the most frustrating part of it all. Not only what can they do to avoid this, why should they even have to? There are lots and lots and lots and lots of instances where the NFL has gotten by degrees safer over the last 10 years or so. The defenseless receiver stuff, the helmet-to-helmet stuff, there are absolutely moments where you can see receiver comes across the middle, goes up for the ball, and if you were watching football in 2004, Bernard Pollard comes through. I'm trying to think of the hardest hitting safety of the era who would do something like this. I don't remember Polamalu being like a dirty player. Let's make it a linebacker if you'd like. Ray Lewis is sitting there in the middle of the field. And if you've got some little slot receiver, because remember that slot receivers used to be smaller and they wasn't always just Devontae Adams and Travis Kelce routinely lining up in the slot. If you're some little slot receiver going across the middle and your quarterback leaves you out to dry even a little bit, just puts that ball up and away to where you have to extend to go get it. You are closing your eyes, trying to touch leather, and hoping that you come back down with your head still attached to your shoulders. Because helmet, shoulder pad, whatever the most accessible part of the body is for that defender, is going to go either into your helmet or at least at the football wherever possible. And inertia tends to sometimes bring that collision to the head and neck area. You don't see stuff like that very often anymore. If a defender launches, remember that's the word, launches. If a defender leaves his feet to invoke harm on an indefensible player, on a player that cannot defend themselves, that is penalized, and that part of the headhunting side of the game has largely been legislated out. I also reject the notion that all of this means that eventually we have to draw the line on player safety. I think right now we are in a very interesting moment where you see the disaster that happens with Tua. Then at the very beginning of the game last week, Teddy Bridgewater has the motor instability. And even though he passes the concussion tests right after, he's not allowed to come back because he's exhibited the stumbling. If that happens in a playoff game, we'll all be thirsty for blood. I mean, it will be a horrible scene if that happens to a quarterback in a playoff game. I also think that over time, those lines will begin to blur a little bit. A quarterback could reasonably come up stumbling and say, yeah, my quad seized up. I was cramping. Or I did the little helmet shake out of habit. And then you ace your concussion test. And maybe these things begin to get a little more elastic, which is kind of how it has to be on a player-to-player basis, because not everybody's brains respond to the same hits the same way. So my hope from all of this is that the NFL is able to have some big picture rules to continue improving player safety, some wiggle room for individual situations and individual players, and that they can do that in a way where they are only penalizing defenders for doing things they had another option to do. And that does not mean that if you pause it in slow-mo and say, well, if he changed his angle here, when it's paused, he could have hit him in the belly button instead of hitting him in the chest. I'm saying within reason. I'm saying you and I watch a replay. Can we, within reason, find a way that a defender did something here they did not have to do in terms of unnecessarily violent football? Ryan Shazier is on my TV right now. This sport is terrifying. The things that can happen to your neck and your brain in a moment are unspeakable. Terrifying to think of. You see a player get carted off and their arms and legs don't move. I don't know about anybody else. Maybe I'm projecting on this particular front. I don't know that there is anything more immediately jarring and terrifying and existentially dreadful to me than the idea of one moment you're a professional football player and the next moment you live the rest of your life without use of your arms and legs. That is an existentially terrifying thing to me. And on some level, the game's safety will only be improved by further equipment and science and treatment, and hopefully advancements of those will continue to come. Penalizing Chris Jones and Grady Jarrett is not doing anything for player safety. It's only making us spend 2 days talking about referees, not just here, not just in Vegas, but nationally. That's what these conversations have been. We'll take our nice early break here to just keep the clocks moving. Breaking news.
The Miami Dolphins players have decided to take ping pong tables out of the locker room in hopes of increasing their game prep done by players.
I know this is a Skylar Thompson-friendly crowd. When Skylar Thompson got into the game, and every time he did anything semi-good, I tweeted Skylar Thompson. I'm here for Skylar Thompson hype.
He's starting this week.
Yeah, that makes sense. Is that officially? They've
Yes.
announced that? I'm so rooting for Skylar Thompson. I think he should stick around for a while. They really liked him in training camp. I love that. It's a great story. And I legit believe in his ability to stick around in this league for a while, okay? But he's a rookie. And the Dolphins are on their third-string quarterback. unless the ping pong tables also sent Tua Tagovailoa back into the game on Thursday Night Football, I'm not sure that's the problem. Maybe the NFL could have another investigation and then go ahead and they would figure out mysteriously, miraculously, the independent neurologist also suggested the ping pong tables. Ugh, that guy was the worst. Please don't look any closer. Nothing else to see here.
They should have been air hockey tables. We all know this.
Is air hockey the best of the table games?
Yes.
In that sense?
Yes.
Not like a board game, but a game like that? I like foosball, but I think you're right. I'm just thinking through. Foosball is up there, but I think I prefer ping pong to foosball. I'm decent at ping pong. It's fun. I don't know. If you're bad at ping pong, it's no fun at all. It's just the ball, somebody, aces you and you have to go pick it up that's no fun. Evenly matched, ping pong is fun. Even unevenly matched, foosball, the great equalizer. Pool, I enjoy, but I'm not very good at it.
Pool's got a wide skill gap there.
Absolutely.
It's either you're really good at it,
Absolutely,
or you're just there to use the stick.
That is
basically it's what you're there for.
You are either the Globetrotters or the Generals. No, there aren't that many nice, evenly matched.
Watch this. I'm going to do a trick shot behind my back.
Yes.
8-ball
Corner
pocket. You can tell which card I belong in.
And then you're over there asking if you can get the little helper stick that you can sit your one stick on top of so you can reach across the board. I think air hockey is the best game of that group. I'm going to tweet out a poll question during the break. I will tweet out a poll question. You can take your pick of the best of the large table games, and we'll track that ever so closely throughout the rest of the show. I'm nearly done talking about referees. I've got one more big picture thing I want to get to, but Chris Jones was not done talking after the game on Monday night. Todd Lebo told us the story of what the locker room looked like then. I want you to hear it from Chris Jones himself. We'll do that next.
Want to see more of The Zone? Watch the show live on the Sports Radio 810 WHB Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch. You're in the zone.
My beard is at a level of voluminosity, not Illuminati. Larry Johnson, I know you're listening. Dude, his Twitter account. Don't use that as a liner. I don't want you to use that as a liner. I don't want Larry Johnson to find a picture of me from when I was 13 covering one eye. I don't know. I just did it. Oh, I just did it on Facebook. And now you can take that screenshot, and now I'm a devil worshiper or something. Oh, now he's going to cut me saying I'm a devil worshiper.
With Jason Anderson.
I'm a devil worshiper.
On Sports Radio 810 WHB.
You know how sometimes you know early in a game Andy Reid's going to be in his bag? So the first play from scrimmage is like three dudes going in motion, but somehow it's legal. And then Patrick Mahomes kicks it off his heel back to McCole Hardman, who then farts it 30 yards downfield to Jody Fortson.
That's some play design.
That's what Beards is going to be today with the liners. That's just a fair warning to everybody. If that was your first play from scrimmage, Beards, it's going to be a long day for me.
I pulled up the old AES liners because I figured we'd break some of those out because it's just you and me today.
Yeah.
And
Jason will be back tomorrow, by the way.
Yeah,
he's out today.
And I was just kind of looking through some and I was like, oh, I haven't heard this one in a while. Let's break that out and see how it does.
My favorite part of it is where I explicitly say, please don't make this a liner.
I didn't hear that part.
It's funny. It's in there every time. Well, if you're looking for any sort of incriminating evidence against me in a visual form, you can get it right now, as I referred to in that liner from the AES days. Now we're in even more places. If you want to watch the show, you can do that on the Sports Radio 810 WHB Facebook page on Facebook Live. Twitter account on Twitter at Sports Radio 810. On Twitch, which is what I have the Twitch chat open today, folks. So if Twitch chat ever said, hey, sometimes you guys don't get to Twitch chat as often as you used to, I've got it open over here in the host chair today. That's twitch.tv/Sports Radio 810. And on YouTube as well, just search for Sports Radio 810 WHB on YouTube, and you'll find the live video. So if you want to watch the show and see me, see Beards, see the disappointed look on Beards' face whenever I don't know, interrupt him from talking about Elden Ring or the NBA or something, you can do that by watching the show.
We already have one Twitch comment saying, "Stop ignoring us."
Boom, we did.
There you go.
There you go. The Twitch chat is maybe my favorite of the chat spaces around here. I think I have the keys to the text line, but I can't get it set up the way Jason does with his many setups of screens and going through and responding to texts and breaks and all that.
Could you pull it up on the side computer?
Yeah, but I don't have the login on the top of my head right now.
Oh,
I think I have it. It's just going to be, it's not accessible at the moment. It might be later on in the show. But I like the Twitch chat because then everyone can talk to each other as well. And so it's like the text line, but whenever we ignore you, you can band together and then try to, use all your channel points to get us to notice one particular message. So watch us and chat with us in any of those places, or of course, 8:10 a.m. on your radio dial, 810whb.com, the app. Also, we podcast everything. We don't talk about that very often, but we podcast every single thing we do in full hours. So if you want to get The Zone wherever you get your podcast, just search for The Zone wherever you get your podcast. Simple as that.
Do you want a serious sports question from one of the chats?
Sure. I want to go serious sports with Chris Jones momentarily, but I'll take a question from the chat.
This is from Bill over on the Facebook page. Brett. I apologize, Brett.
Wow. Thanks, Brett.
You'll see why I said Bill.
Okay.
We know the Bills are a really good team. What do the Chiefs have to do to make sure the game doesn't play out like the Raiders game did?
If the Chiefs want to beat the Bretts, here's what they're going to have to do. It's a joke about Beards getting the names wrong. We are now teetering towards genuinely looking ahead to that game, and I want to do a little more of that a little later on. Here's where I'll tell you my eyes are fixed right now. It's on the edges. I think Orlando Brown Jr. discourse has maybe gotten a little bit poisoned by a full offseason of talking about holdouts and contracts and all of that. I'm not sure that we totally evaluate him in the most healthy, useful way possible. But the speed of Von Miller with the bend he can make at the top of that arc is very concerning to me. Andrew Wiley, and if it's Nick Allegretti again, it kind of seems like it's trending in that direction. If it's Andrew Wiley and Nick Allegretti on that right side, those are starter caliber offensive linemen in the NFL. I do not know that they are going to be able to succeed without help against Buffalo. And I don't know if Orlando Brown and Joe Thuney are going to be able to do that either. Thuney seems like he's gotten his stuff figured out. Whatever that weird little blip on the radar was maybe just a blip. But I am legitimately worried about what the Bills' pass rush is going to be able to do, because if they get there quick enough, whatever the Chiefs do with their pass catchers might not matter. We've got a bunch of chats now. First-time chats. Heard you're a devil worshiper.
I was just going to send you that one.
Nope, I saw it. I don't think I can read their username, but I see it. The high camera angle really hides your chins well. Thank you. Beards is the guy, though. Cool. Any other ones over there that made you laugh, Beards? I saw you laughing, so I figured I'd look over there.
Oh, it was the devil worshiper one and the username that we're not going to be able to read on radio.
Okay. Well, me and my chins will just go ahead and focus on continuing to host the radio show, since you guys love Beards so much anyway.
Sad fans at 1.
There's a little gift for the video viewers right there that I'm not even going to try to explain at radio. Let me hear from Chris Jones here, because this is going to send us off into my one remaining serious refereeing take for the week. And also, I just thought what Chris Jones had to say post-game was tremendous. As Lebo said yesterday, Chris Jones seemed pretty much ready to set up shop and preach for a little bit post-game. He was not at the podium, but in the locker room, he was ready to talk, and he just started going. I don't think there's an entire question in this entire clip, and he had a lot to say that I think some of it he's dead on, some of it I'd tweak, but boy, I certainly understand that man being frustrated post-game after Chiefs Raiders.
They called it, man. It don't even matter what I see, you know what I mean? The game, I think as a league, we got to take initiative to a lot of these roughing the passes calls that's getting called, you know, especially in critical situations in the game. I think we was 10-20 right then. That was the third down stop. And I think roughing the passers, they done put such an emphasis on that we got to be able to view it in the booth now. You know what I mean? I think that's the next step as the NFL as a whole. If we're going to continue to call roughing the passers at that high of a velocity, then we got to be able to view it in the booth to make sure, because sometimes the looks can be deceiving, you know what I mean? From the ref point of view, he probably looked like that initially, but, you know, and when you look at the replay, it's a whole different thing. So I think now to evolve roughing the passer and protecting the quarterback is essentially what we're doing in this league. We got to be able to look at roughing the passers in the booth. You take a look at the Grady Jarrett situation.
I was going to ask you about that. Did you see that one from yesterday?
Of course. It's all over Twitter. And what type of situation that was in the game. That was a third down stop also. And then when you take that in the initiative, if we're able to view it in the booth and the referees can get a second look because it's happening so fast, maybe we can change that. Because now it's getting absurd. You know what I'm saying? Now it's causing teams games. You know, that was a fourth down stop on Grady Jarrett. That team would have got the ball back, and you know, who knows what would have happened. But for them not to be able to look at that, you know, when you see it on videos, you know, you can, you know, and faster, when it's faster and you on the field, and it happened that fast, you know, the ref, they might see something different. But when they're able to, like, look at the video and see that it's not roughing the passers, a lot of these roughing the passers would be called back. You know, initially like today, you know, roughing the passer, I actually stripped the ball and gravity kind of took me to the ground. And it's a roughing the passer call in a critical situation in the game. It's third down. We're down 10 points. You know what I mean? And that's a momentum shift in the game that could have affected us.
Did you
know
get
what
an
I mean?
explanation from the refs?
It's no need for an explanation, okay? So what I'm going to go up to him and say, how should I tackle? How should I not roll on him? I'm trying my best. I'm 25 pounds, okay? What you want me to do? What you want me to do? I'm running full speed trying to get the quarterback. I hit the ball. What you want me to do? I brace my hands. So I think it's like taking the initiative to extend to look at roughing the passers now as a league, you know, like they did pass interference a couple years back, where we can view the pass interference. I think that's now the next level we're going to have to take as a league for all these roughing the passers.
That's a frustrated, elite pass rusher right there. And I understand it. I understand exactly why Chris Jones would say something like, I don't need an explanation. What am I going to go ask him for? How to tackle? I went and I did one of the hardest things to do in the sport. I just took the ball away from another grown man whose job it is to hold on to the football. I took it. Gravity took me, and I braced myself on the fall. And it was roughing the passer. That is the voice of a distraught pass rusher who has every reason to be. I mentioned this yesterday, but I really want to just hammer this home, because I feel sort of like the scientist in a disaster movie who's like running around with a big stack of papers and a bunch of binders and some, crooked glasses or whatever, and trying to warn the world that if we don't do this, pretty soon dinosaurs are going to come out of the ocean. Everyone goes, oh, it's just you being, come on. I mean, who are you? Why would you know any of this? We'll figure it out. And then, 15 minutes later, Godzilla's here. I feel like I have, if not the definitive answer, a tremendous positive step. And I've been on this for years now. I'm more confident saying years because I honestly think we talked about this back on ESPN Kansas City at some point back in the day, Beards. So if that's true, it's been years that I've been on this particular take. Like I said yesterday, I can solve a ton of the NFL's biggest refereeing problems with one more official and a few pairs of AirPods. It could be a walkie-talkie system. It can be your earpiece of choice. It could just be getting this person onto the earpiece they already have. But if you have, call them the Sky Judge. At one point, they were looking into doing this on some level. And I really want to push it beyond what they were even talking about originally. I want to make this a proactive and reactive move. Keep your crew the exact same on the bottom level. Give everybody some form of hearing, and at least the head ref, some form of speaking back up to your new Sky Judge in the booth. You have a referee up in the booth who is watching the game live, who has a video feed of the broadcast, who has video feeds of every camera, every replay angle, ideally the capabilities to run it themselves or with a little sidekick that can help run that film back and forth in real time. And they don't even need to have a big red button that stops the game. I don't want a Sky Judge to do like how they do it with concussions now, where if somebody sees the wobbling, now you can have somebody from up top call down and say, hey, you got to get this guy out of the game. I don't need this ref to stop the games because nobody wants more stoppages for more reviews. That's bad for everybody. It's bad for the product. The only winners there might be advertisers because there's probably going to be more commercial breaks.
Also, we need timers on reviews.
Fine with that, too. If a review takes a certain amount of time that you can't figure out the answer,
call stands.
The call should probably just stand. I'm with you on that, too. But if you have a ref who can just be watching as we are watching at home, but especially with all the other camera angles and everything, with the click of a talkback button, as Beards can use on his side of the glass to tell me it's time to break or whatever.
Speaking of which,
as easy as that, your Sky Judge could buzz down to Carl Sheffers and say, pick it up, no flag, no roughing. In the time it takes for the referees to confer and talk to each other. We played the clip from John Perry yesterday when he said that Sheffers needed help from the umpire on that play. Get better help from your refereeing crew. Get better help from the NFL. Do you know what would be even more helpful than just the other umpire, some other middle-aged dude on the field just using his natural eyes that God gave him? Someone in the booth with all of the HD camera angles that we have at home. We knew what this was going to be in real time. We knew it was a bad call in real time. We could see it before it was announced. Someone in the booth could have said, maybe you say, stall for 10 seconds. Reviewing up here. No flag. That's it. You could solve it that quickly for Chris Jones and Grady Jarrett, and that might just be for the most obvious of the obvious. You might not be able to fix a questionable holding penalty. And frankly, if a ref doesn't throw that flag on when Chris Jones did get held later in the game and didn't get the call, the play goes on. I don't remember what happened the rest of the play. I do not think that a 15-yard gain should then be retroactively after the play undone from a ref saying, 95 got held, throw the flag. If you don't throw the flag live, maybe you just don't. That might just be something that this format can't solve. Maybe it makes refs a little bit more willing to throw the flag on a borderline thing and then have it corrected where maybe you see an uptick in picked up flags in the NFL with my system. You know what I would say to that? Fantastic! If it's not fewer overall penalties, at least it would be fewer bad penalties. And this doesn't require a robot ump. This isn't the conversation we're having about strike zones in baseball. This is just use the assets you already have and make the jobs of your referees easier. I don't lose sleep over Carl Sheffers or Jerome Boger or the ghost of Ed Hockley or whoever it may be. Individual guys making calls in real time. Just like I don't think a lot about, Nick Allegretti after the game and going, man, I just don't know why he didn't do better. Well, it's because he had a grown man across from him getting paid a lot of money to beat him. It's a hard job. It's hard to be a ref in real time. I'm with you on that. This is an easy one to say, hey, give the refs need a little bit of credit for being the oldest, least athletic people on a field trying to enforce the rules on a field with 22 moving parts. That's hard.
One quick comment that I've got here, and then we'll probably need to take a break.
I was gonna.
That's fine. I've got a Twitch comment here, and I kind of echo this point a little bit. Couldn't that lead to more frustration though when there's a tense call and then quote some guy in the booth decides to give it no penalty? I very much despise in the NBA the last 24-second or the last 2-minute reports because I just don't think they do anything. But I think like this level of just kind of opacity or like lack thereof of just like some guys just like. Yeah, no flag. And some big game instance like that is kind of a bit of an issue. Look, the NFL needs to be more transparent in how this all gets done anyway. It's why those pool reports are so frustrating. Let this continue to be an evolution of the process. If there is a flag thrown and then it's picked up because of somebody in the booth with the sky judge, here's the thing. That happens all the time already. That happens with non-calls. I'm trying to remember. I think there was an example in Chiefs Raiders. I can't remember. Oh yeah. It was when Carl Sheffers came out and his voice cracked. It's because a flag got thrown. He went out. Somebody picked up the flag. They met about it. And then he came out and said, there is no foul on the play. Nothing to see here. First down. That already happens and we don't bat an eye at it. We can review that in real time and then judge it as we go. But that's not going to make. We see the referees on the field talking about that.
But they're going to do that anyway, though. I mean, if there is a flag picked up and we hear there is no foul on the play, that is the signal for what has happened there. And if anyone's hung up on where it comes from, if you care, if it's the umpire on the field or the sky judge that says no flag there, they can differentiate on that. And then ideally, I would rather the NFL have something closer to a 2-minute report where they have an explanation of why something was or wasn't a call beyond just the pool reporter. I'm good with them explaining more of their work, but I'm not saying there's going to necessarily be some air of mystery created around it. It's just going to be an element of making things move more quickly so not every one of those decisions gets explained. I think we underestimate how many of those decisions don't get explained already. This is just streamlining some of those same messes, and it's keeping you from having long-lasting penalties, highly impactful penalties that we spend the rest of the week talking about. It's better than what they've got right now. I feel really good about that. In about 10 minutes, we'll talk to Cynthia Frelund of NFL Network. No Jason Anderson today, although you wouldn't know it by how long we waited to take this break. Beards McFly on the other side of the glass. I am Joshua Brisco. More Zone next.
Follow the show on Twitter at J810Anderson, at JB Briscoe, at Beards McFly, and at Sports Radio 810. The Zone with Jason Anderson.
George has been waiting on hold very patiently. George, thank you for waiting. What's on your mind?
You were homeschooled. That explains a lot.
On Sports Radio 810 WHB.
I'm going to be taking shots from the liners all day here. I'm not surprised.
Don't worry, I'll find some of me too. Don't worry.
Another Twitch comment saying the XFL had a good system for this. They did. Having all of that mic'd up was awesome. I just have no expectation the NFL will ever give us that amount of transparency. I'd like more, but like there's a tweet here from Andrew Siciliano. Mike McCarthy says he would support making roughing the passer a reviewable penalty.
We don't need more reviews.
Any foul 15 yards or more should be reviewable. Here's the thing. It has an outsized impact on the game. These are game-changing plays that we're seeing all the time in these 15-yard field flippers. I don't want more reviews, but the calls need to be made correctly, which is why I am running for the NFL head of officiating with the platform I have laid out over the course of this hour. Vote for me. I'm not sure that's a democratic system, but maybe it can just take over. Cynthia Frelund of NFL Network joins us next.
Schlotsky's guest
The Zone with Jason Anderson.
Dip them in once, flip them over, dip them in again. I don't know.
Oh, a double dip.
I would double dip the baby.
Weekdays from 10 to 2 on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
I've already acknowledged this is going to be Beards pitching a nearly perfect game from the liner mechanic. But I'm going to have to figure out how many of these get explanations. Because the Larry Johnson Illuminati when I let go. Dipping the baby, that was a zone one at least, right? I mean, that's a recent poll. I don't know if Cynthia Frelund of NFL Network has any particular affection for Greek or Roman mythology. That all came from a conversation about Achilles. Cynthia, sometimes we learn things about people while asking for the strangest class you took in college. Anything that really gave you a curveball there for a couple credit hours?
I mean, I was like a biology major, so I took a lot of things that are wildly unuseful for me now.
Yeah.
But look, I did take like some really interesting philosophy classes that kind of stuck with me. But I did, BC, we had to do all the different different credit stuff, like liberal arts stuff, right? And I took a comparative world religions class that sometimes still probably sticks with me the most, just because they all seem to be very, very similar, despite being quite different.
That's great. I took a sociology of religion class that I think about all the time. So that's fun to find the things that stick with you. How did you end up a biology major, and then how did you end up taking that to where you are now?
Well, I obviously was going to be a doctor, right? So
got it. That's a smart person answer. I was like, I like animals. I could have done. No, I couldn't have. That's because you're smart, though.
No, my sister's a doctor, so I thought well, I have to be a doctor, so it wasn't the right fit for me, obviously. But she's the good one, I get to be the bad one. It all works out, man.
That's good. Okay, so we're just gonna find little different things that we'll learn about you off the field. We'll say, here's my one other nonsense, and then they can ask about some of the very busy things that have been going on. What's the best full size table game? If you're going ping pong, pool, air hockey, foosball, those are our 4 big contenders so far. But the poll response on Twitter right now has been very surprising to me.
Interesting. Well, I'm curious what the response is, but I guess I would have to say, ping pong is probably the easiest one. I think pool can be tough if you don't really know how to play. Although it's probably the one with the best. That's the best after that. Air hockey is a lot of fun, but it also can be you need a good your opponent. You need to have someone that you're more evenly matched with. Whereas ping pong, you can play with a kid or whatever.
You must be a nicer ping pong player than I am, because that's not true for me. But yeah, it makes sense. Ping pong is just narrowly behind pool right now, in second and first place respectively. Air hockey in third, foosball last. We're apparently an air hockey show here. I thought that would be the runaway winner, but your opponent matters. That you have to adjust for that, which is what the analytics are for.
Exactly.
Do you ever get tired of being the spokesperson for all of analytics, specifically whenever it feels like it takes over a 3-day conversation period like it has this week? Because I get tired of that, and it's not nearly the size of my job that it is of yours.
Yeah, so it's less that I get tired of it and more now I've just started repeating the same thing, right? Because at the end of the day, let's be honest, people they'll dip in and out, and your consciousness is something really, if you weren't a fan of a team that maybe made a decision that sparks this conversation, maybe you didn't hear it. So it's not that I get tired of it. It's more that now it's it feels like it's a little bit on repeat. Yeah. So just trying to be okay, the reality is it's not this. And, sometimes people, are talking about it on games, maybe their ability to explain or the way that they've understood it means something specific for them, but doesn't necessarily translate to how they're describing it on the. It's actually a very difficult thing to it can be a very difficult thing to describe. So it can be tricky from that regard for sure.
Well, and I imagine a lot of that comes through with the thing I will eventually ask about, the 2-point conversions and the fourth downs and that stuff. But that seems to me to be a place where there's a lot of the repetition. Is there anything within the season so far, even where you've looked around and say, hey, there's actually some new data in a new place here, something that has sort of been a creative spark in that way? Like 2 or 3 years ago, I don't think I knew what EPA was, and now we talk about it every day. Is there a forefront like that has you excited about a new form of understanding the game that we're finding?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the game evolves, like, one, as the kids are coming out of college, like, what their skill sets are. That's the first part. And two, like, there's just different, like, rules change. Everything changes. They all kind of evolve together. So, you really are seeing, like, a lot more, for example, you would never think this before, but, like, Aaron Rodgers leads the league in passes at or behind the line of scrimmage. And it's weird to see, like, you ask Michael Irvin on a Sunday, he's like, I never caught a ball behind the line. And I didn't think he was telling the truth, but he was. He didn't.
Never?
Didn't do that. Never.
Wow.
He wasn't targeted. It's just such a different game, right? So it's interesting, like, and then the strategies to defend that are thus different as well. Like, the ability now to, it's really good if you can get pressure without bringing the blitz, because a lot of these young quarterbacks, they're good at, when you blitz them, like, don't blitz Patrick Mahomes. Why?
Right.
Because he can beat the blitz, right? And a lot of these younger guys, they have that split and 2 safety shells. Zone defense is a lot harder for younger guys to read than the older guys, right? Like, you wanted to play Tom Brady with man because you need to have tight coverage on any of his pass catchers. Well, now zone actually throws people off more because they don't have as much experience playing zone. So it's more about, like, I'm going to use the word resume, but I'm using air quotes, because it's like, what have they seen a lot of? And you want to try to target things that people haven't seen as much of, right? So that you can get a little bit of an advantage.
How are you seeing that in the run games? Because that's something where, again, you go back 2 or 3 years, it felt like the countercultural movement was, hey, teams need to be throwing the ball more. And being here in Kansas City in the dawn of the Patrick Mahomes era, there was a whole lot of that we were talking about, and rightfully so. But now you see the offensive lines maybe across the league finding their counterpunch, or maybe you find offenses finding the running game itself being kind of the counterpunch. Is there a shift in that right now where there's a little bit of I don't know, free money to be had in running the ball whenever defenses have adjusted for a passing heavier league? Or is that maybe just in Kansas City? Is that a mirage?
Well, Kansas City is tough because you have such versatility. Your quarterback is, like, let's use an easier example because, for example, like, look, I don't think anyone's going to say that Daniel Jones is anywhere near the quarterback of Patrick Mahomes.
Sure.
Yet the Giants are having success because Saquon Barkley, not just because Saquon Barkley is breaking all of the tackles, which he clearly is, and take nothing away from him, but this season he's had more yards before contact than we've seen in the past. I mean, obviously he's been hurt, so there's a little bit of nuance there, but he has a ton of yards before contact. Like 60% of his rush yards last game against the Packers came before he was even first contacted. So there is, you're right, like the counterbalance to a lot of these throws. And also that's an interesting one as well because Daniel Jones, like, who is he going to throw it to? Like, their entire wide receiving core was depleted. So, a lot of it has to do with how defenses are starting. Like, what does their base look like? And again, base is now even not a normal thing to say, right? Like, so I would say you're right. Like, if you have a strong run game, you do have a pretty big advantage because it opens up more options in the pass catching game. But I would also give the asterisk there that for a lot of teams, those short passes, they're approximating runs for teams who don't have those kind of runners.
Interesting. Okay, so talking to Cynthia Frelund, NFL Network, in the very narrative-driven conversational side of things and farther out of the cool new things, maybe into the old that we've gone over a few times. I appreciated your tweet attempting once more to try to explain, how analytics get used in a healthy way, and that it's not some binary thing where this is where you have in the booth, maybe you get the feeling that a head coach is being held at gunpoint on the sideline and someone is saying, you go for it on 4th and 3 here because the numbers say there's a 51% chance, and if you don't, you're fired. That's not how this is working in any NFL front office or sideline or booth anywhere in the league, but we have found that narratively. Is there a solution for us to talk about it better? Like for you and me in our forums, but also on TV broadcasts and on Twitter, is there a healthier way we can reform the conversation?
Yeah, I mean, look, there's two kind of things at play here. One, the teams create their own models. And if your model is the better your person creating the model is, the better your model is going to be. It's just like anything else.
Mm-hmm.
And every team has something different. So, and then by the way, you can choose to use it or not. The idea is to just be aware of, are you doing something that is contrarian to what you would choose in a neutral situation? It's Wednesday. You know, we're talking now. Andy Reid, I'm sure if Andy Reid had every play he's ever called back right now and could recall it again, he would make some different decisions. Not a lot, because he's been very successful, but no one gets it right 100% of the time. So it's, what would you have wanted to know in that moment? What information did you have? What information would you have liked to have that you didn't have? And how can you improve the process of decision making? That's all it is. So the thing is we have in media, we have, a next gen stats, and ESPN has a wonderful model too. Like, they have one, but that's for every team in the league, because we don't have it's not like the Raiders are going to call us and McDaniels will be like, hey, Cynthia, just so you know, this is what our card says for if we're going to go for or not. And I may or may not make that decision because Patrick Mahomes' offense scares the bejesus out of me and blah, 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 blah. Right? Like, you don't know. And also in the heat of the moment, maybe, your left tackle has been getting beaten up and you don't know if the offense can sustain another drive to get your field goal within field goal range. So there's a lot of things that change as the game goes on, but nobody tells us. So the reality is that it's a skill to be able to talk about numbers. Obviously, I believe that because that's what my career is based on. But it's not something you're necessarily I'm not adequately. I'm not suited to be a school teacher. I have zero patience for that. So I can't just go in there and be a school teacher, right? So you have to get people who know how to talk about it in a way that is not so – because, I love a lot of these broadcasters who do such a great job, but that's what they're there. They're there for play-by-play, or they're there for, they're the analyst that has football playing experience. But I don't know, ESPN has a great model, and like I said, but even ESPN's model, people who are involved in making that model, they would say, well, this is a shortcoming because this model is for an average team and you are playing the Chiefs, which is not an average team. So it's not universally able to be applied, right? It's different. So that's the problem that we have. So what you have to say is, you have to say, okay, ESPN's model, or I know the Next Gen Stats model because that's what we use at NFL Network, right? Next Gen Stats says that, on this play, actually a good one that is more of a real world example, on this play, a guy, I don't know, the Jets game, right? On one play, the Next Gen Stats model said that when Breece Hall had that, nice big catch in the first quarter, they added 15% win percentage on that play. Okay, well, that's true, but it's also the first quarter, and it's also, there's just a lot to factor in there. Did you know that Teddy Bridgewater was going to go out? No, right? That hadn't happened yet. So, it's cool to see those numbers, but you have to remember, on the next play, they can have a -7% or a -8. So you really have to be able to contextualize that in a way that people can understand, because it's the sum of all of the individual plays, not just one specific one. It's cool to look back on that one, especially for example, if you're a Jets fan and say, wow, Breece Hall, 79-yarder, that's pretty cool. Great for my fantasy team, but it's not necessarily the next play could be -4, right?
Yeah, the winning percentage one's funny because I will see people tweet, whenever there's a game that reaches 90%, and then, in the third quarter and the game ends up going another way, people will tweet about how not a very good model. Well, it's just at that moment, right? I mean, it's a snapshot of where things stand in that instance, where if you move the winning percentage, like I said, 7 points in the first quarter, there is still so much still to be determined. I don't know. I get frustrated where I feel like things like that aren't taught very well, possibly maybe going back to how neither of us would be very good school teachers. But the booth is a place where I would love to see there be a little more of that. And if you're not going to volunteer, I'll volunteer you on your behalf.
I definitely would volunteer.
Okay, good.
There's some well, maybe we'll get Kansas City to help with this, because sometimes some of the executives are we don't know where we'd put it in, blah blah blah. I'm okay, well, you bring Dean Blandino in on a review. And the reality is I don't like those. I get annoyed with those models too. When they say oh, the win percentage is 99 and then it went to whatever, must not be a good model. The reality is that if you have to look at how many times over the course of lots of games it goes from 90 to the other team winning, then you actually could have a bad model if you're often at 99 and your model gets crushed. But remember, we're a game of 3 and 7 points. Rarely is it one that makes a difference, right?
Yeah.
So you don't see a lot of 1-point wins. You see a lot of wins with bigger margins because of the way that our scoring goes. So it's a tricky note, and you have to be able to contextualize that, and you also have to be able to say, all right, an average team would win. An average team, this win percentage is 82%. I'm making something up, right? But we've got 2 minutes left, and you know how many times the Chiefs have beaten an 82%er? Well, it's happened 7 times. I'm making that up, but something like that, right? You have to be able to add the context that specifically identifies the two teams that are playing from the aggregate of the whole.
Do you feel like you have a feeling for Andy Reid in particular? Ben Baldwin put out his win probability lost per game by kicking either a field goal or a punt in go for it situations. The Broncos are in first by a mile, but then the Chiefs are in second. Also from Ben, the Chiefs are very near in the bottom quarter of the league by eyeballing it in going for it when they should. Mentioning it again, so that is league wide, right? So to take your point there, the Chiefs situations might be a little bit different. I could hear an argument that says Andy Reid plays that a little safer or a little more conservatively because his team is always very good. But is there anything that you see in terms of maybe it being the ways that good coaches or coaches of good teams typically handle those? Or has Andy Reid given you a bigger picture of kind of his philosophy, specifically over the Mahomes era?
Well, the cool part about Andy Reid is that you get a lot of data points, right? The hard part for coaches who only last 3-4 years is you have to go a lot based on their lineage and their tree, right? Like, did they come from a Shanahan tree? Are they a blah, blah, blah? Are they a Belichick person? But Andy Reid has given us his philosophy for years and years and years. Yeah. So you have seen it when he's had quarterbacks like Patrick, who can score very, very quickly, and offenses like this, and you've seen it when he doesn't have that. So I would say that for me, Andy, the context you need to add to really understand Andy versus the average would probably have to include something like, well, how many seconds does it realistically take Patrick to score in fourth quarters or in any quarter for that matter? And this year versus years prior, and how does that trend against these types of defenses? Like, we all know Leslie Frazier plays Patrick. Is he going to even blitz once because he didn't do it in the past 2 seasons, right?
Right.
I don't know. Right, but it's very probable that it's going to be a low percentage, but that's different than the Cardinals, who nonsensically kept blitzing in the fourth quarter when that entire offense was I don't even know if they wanted to score that many points. They just couldn't help themselves. So these are things where it's okay, well, are you playing people who are logical or illogical? I think everyone would agree that Chiefs versus Bills is far more of a chess match this season and last season than that first game against the Cardinals was, especially when it got out of hand in the second half.
I like that point very much, and I want to talk about Chiefs Bills with you a little bit. So first, tell me exactly how good the Bills are. Are they alone in their own tier for you right now? Do they stand above, or is there a mix of a few teams in the same category? Presumably, that would have to include the Chiefs.
Well, I think these are my two top teams right now. Cool. I hate that they're in the same conference because because it is impossible for us to get the Super Bowl matchup that I would really want, which would be these two. I don't know if there's anyone that's even close to these two, to be honest with you. And I would put the Chiefs right up. The Chiefs and the Bills are the two who I think are this is it. These are the two.
And so where do the advantages lie? Where are you right now seeing, okay, these are the two teams I believe in, but they are also different in quite a few ways, I'd imagine.
Yeah, so it's an interesting note. So the first advantage, we'll start with Josh Allen, right? So touchdowns and downfield and yards on downfield passes, those are 10+ air yard passes. Obviously that's where he scored all 4 of his touchdowns against the Steelers in Week 5. So he has 801 passing yards like that and 9 touchdowns. And that's an interesting spot because the Chiefs secondary is allowing the highest passer rating on these passes. So 7 touchdowns, no interceptions on downfield passes. Again, those are 10+ air yard passes. So there's one side. There's one of the arguments for the Bills. And just to kind of round that out, Diggs has 11 receptions on these, and that's an area where he scores some touchdowns. So Diggs, we know that hitch route is a problem. that is something where you got to look. No Chiefs fan is sitting there being like, you know what, we have the best secondary in the league. They're so experienced. They're going to know how to handle Josh Allen perfectly. Like nobody is thinking that. No. Right. The other one that was a little more surprising for me was about Allen in the slot. So he also leads the league in passing yards to slot receivers. So that's interesting because that's another area where the Chiefs have had some interesting results against slot receivers. So that's going to be something where I'm going to be watching specifically to see how that happens, right? Like especially big downfield plays to slot receivers. So like that adding together, that's the key to their side. Now on the other side of the ball, it's very interesting to me when I'm looking at, look, we all know that the Bills are struggling in their secondary. I just saw some news come across the wire that Tre'Davious White's back in practice, but he's not going to play in this one. They are missing tons of pieces. Obviously, losing Micah Hyde for the season is a big problem for them. That two safety set is like what they are known for. So it's interesting, though, because when I look at what is really going to be the problem against the Bills, Mahomes and Kelsey, fewer than 10 air yard passes. Their completion percentage, 85.7. That's like that's 10 percentage points more than last season. 10.
That's
ridiculous.
You said less than 10 air yards, right?
Yes, so short passes. But that's where you saw.
Yeah, and half a dozen of those. It feels like most of those are 6, 7, 8. Those aren't all the behind the line of scrimmage passes that Michael Irvin never caught. That's unbelievable.
No, those are not. No, those are touchdowns. Those are basically Monday Night Football touchdowns.
Right.
That's what they are.
Right.
So, but it's something where Kelsey's been lining up all over the formation. He's a mismatch, even if you're going up against Tre'Davious White. But without their secondary being fully intact, that is going to be quite interesting and quite a problem. Now, the Bills, it's going to be interesting. So when I'm looking at how the Bills will play this, right, it's likely not a lot of blitzing, and we see the Bills, they always play a lot of nickel, over 90% of them. And given that they're pretty banged up in their secondary, that feels like we're going to see just nickel, right? Mm-hmm. So Chiefs, just so you know, against the light box, they're about average on the season, tied for 17th. But Buffalo, they're really good. So you're not going to run on them with a light box. They're actually minus 60 rushing yards over expected. So they're the best in the NFL at that. Now, they're going to want to try to – the Bills' defense, the Chiefs are going to need to, establish some running threats to give themselves a little bit of extra space even there too, right? So so to me, it's is Patrick going to run a little bit more in this one than we've seen him run in the past few games? Probably. Do I think he has more rushing yards than Josh Allen in this one? No, but don't be surprised. You got to get all those running backs, figured out. The light box is going to be tough for them compared to some of the other games we've seen. So maybe, but if they slip up and they pull that extra defender in the box, see you later. Big play all day for Patrick Mahomes.
Okay, so what are you seeing in the models? What are you expecting right now?
I'm so glad I'm on the radio in Kansas City. I did preseason with the Bills, so I will be ducking and covering from them this week because this is the closest. This is one of the closest projections I've had in a long time. But I have a 1-point win. It's 27-26 right now. 27-26 Chiefs. Home team. How are the Chiefs not favored at home? That is ridiculous.
Getting a field goal. 3 points feels like a lot. But hey, it's a first for Patrick Mahomes. It's going to be hopefully at least a game that lives up to all of that hype. Good luck, Cynthia, if you have to dip back into Buffalo anytime soon. Maybe that they'll forget eventually. But right now, this is a safe space. You're getting the cheers from the home crowd here. I appreciate that. Appreciate your insight and for bringing grade A stuff, even with the backup quarterback throwing you the passes today. Sometimes that happens.
You know what? Listen, there's no backup. We prepare the same no matter what. I am
the Skylar Thompson of this show, I think. That's sort of.
You're not the Skylar Thompson of this show.
He's local. He's local here, K-State guy. So I think that works out okay for me with at least a decent portion of our listening audience.
Well,
I can't be Teddy Bridgewater
because K-State guy. But I just meant you're not third string. That is for sure.
I would be Teddy Bridgewater, but I'm not currently wearing gloves, and that right there would be the number one defining factor, I think.
Gosh, I hope you're not already wearing gloves. It's like the 12th of October. No gloves yet.
No gloves. It's flannel weather right now. That's nice. No, the gloves can wait until at least November 1st, probably.
Perfect.
Cynthia, thank you very much again for your time, and we'll chat with you again next week.
Yeah, have a great week.
That's Cynthia Frelund, NFL Network. You can also follow her on Twitter @CFrelund. across NFL Network, analytics expert on a whole bunch of things. Don't go ask her about 2-point conversions. Don't ask her about fourth downs. A lot of that's settled science. But you can follow her on Twitter, again, C Frelund, CFRELUND, and you can see her all across NFL Network. And hopefully soon in a broadcast booth near you, because we could really use somebody to step in and explain how some of this stuff works in real time on the broadcast. I think that might be the next frontier for making smarter football fans on TV. I fully nominate Cynthia to be the person that takes the helm there. And also, yes, as she mentioned, not a surprise necessarily, but very, very noteworthy that Sean McDermott said that cornerback Tre'Davious White's 21-day practice window will open today, but he will not play against the Chiefs. So no Tre'Davious White, no Micah Hyde. These secondaries are going to be tested a lot in this game between the Chiefs and the Bills. We'll talk about that a little bit more on the other side here of the break here in the Zone.
Take the show with you by listening live on 810WHB.com, in the 810 mobile app, or by subscribing to The Zone wherever you get your podcasts. The Zone with Jason Anderson.
I wonder how far you could throw a baby. Feels like a fair question, right?
It's not going to be a perfect spiral, I can tell you that much.
On Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Thanks again to biology major, philosopher, world religion expert Cynthia Frelund for joining us. Talk to her every week here in the Zone. I'm Joshua Brisco. No Jason Anderson today. He's out. He'll be back tomorrow. No emergencies or anything. Just being dad of the year. I feel the need to clarify that sometimes. I don't like people worrying about, a mysterious absence. But again, I, Joshua Brisco, and the one and only Beards McFly are here with you. In the meantime, we're here till 2 o'clock per usual. At 1 o'clock, though, the rarely seen Wednesday edition of Sad Fans on Reddit. But the Monday night game meant that today is the day. So if you need a little hump day help, you heard me. Sad Fans on Reddit Raiders edition is almost certainly going to be, well, humping.
I finished it. I managed to get it all edited there during Cynthia. It is good to go. 1 p.m. Sad Fans on Reddit.
This isn't going to be one of those instances where you're like, yep, I've edited it. I was doing a few things at once. So then maybe, and then all of a sudden we hear you quoting a Raiders fan dropping a feisty F-bomb.
Nope, we're good.
You are clear and good to go.
I went through it a couple times. Should be good.
It is the most, this has been true now for years as we've done Sad Fans on Reddit. It's the most I have ever fully had to trust Beards because I just don't think it's as special if I hear it beforehand. Like, I like all of us to get our own genuine reaction. So Beards is truly the only one who hears it before it goes live. And it really feels like a trapeze act and you're down there just trimming away the netting. Just, we don't need any of this. We're good up here. It's fun. I very much enjoy that.
Safety harness.
So if you haven't shed your safety harness yet or heard Sad Fans before, you're going to want to be here at 1 o'clock. That's also when Mick Shaffer will join us as well. A lot of great stuff from Cynthia. No surprise there. Chiefs pressers will start in just like a few minutes. We'll take a quick timeout momentarily and then come back and hear from Andy Reid, Darius Harris, and Orlando Brown Jr. An interesting quartet there where Orlando Brown, we'll talk more around it all.
And
but
Patrick Mahomes.
Did I not say Patrick Mahomes? I wrote down Patrick Mahomes. Who wants to hear from Patrick Mahomes? Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, Orlando Brown Jr., Darius Harris. That's what I have. Harris has played really well in absence of Willie Gay. He's going to have to do that one more time before Gay comes back next week after this Bills game. And Orlando Brown Jr., I think the conversation around him narratively has really been interesting. As I said earlier, I think it's maybe been a little bit poisoned by the contract offseason. I don't think that's unfair, and I'm not here to tell you he's been great this year by any means. But I do wonder if it has maybe gone a bit too far down the Orlando Brown actually stinks route, and we just haven't seen a truly unnoteworthy tackle at the left side in a long time. But it has, I'm sure he will say, it has not been the start to the year that he was hoping for. It has not been the start to the year that's going to get him an enormous paycheck this offseason. But I am waiting to hold judgment as the season goes on, because there's no other option. Unless you want Prince Tagovailoa over there starting a left tackle, we're going to have to wait this one out. So we'll hear from Orlando Brown Jr., Darius Harris, Andy Reid, and I believe this says here Patrick Mahomes. On the other side of this break, live from Arrowhead. That's next here on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
You're in the zone with Jason Anderson on Sports Radio 810 WHB. You're in the zone.
It's like I'm trying to think of a good home repair project to compare the Chiefs to at this point. So, I don't know. We tried the WD-40. We tried the duct tape.
With Jason Anderson.
Have you tried just hitting that doorknob with a fish?
On Sports Radio 810 WHB.
If I wanted to explain that one, I couldn't. I have no memory of that. It just sounds like my voice, so I imagine I said it. A little bit of housekeeping on the Chiefs roster side. Earlier this morning, the agent of Taylor Stallworth tweeted out that Taylor Stallworth himself has been added to the Chiefs' 53-man roster. Been on the practice squad through the season so far. He was a Colt last year. Thought Danny Shelton might be the next man up off the practice squad, the enormous man at defensive tackle that could really eat some blocks. This is a move certainly corresponding to Tershawn Wharton's injury. He tore his ACL on Monday night against the Raiders. Really tough loss. He was second on the Chiefs in defensive tackle snaps this year, behind only Chris Jones, despite the fact that Colin Saunders has been having his best year as a pro. That's still a meaningful loss, the loss of Tershawn Wharton. But Saunders and Wharton can do some of the same things, so this is a huge opportunity for Colin Saunders, a guy who I honestly thought was on the roster bubble coming into the season. He is now going to be relied on to bring a little extra pass rushing juice as the freak athlete that he is. And no one's ever doubted the athleticism, but this might be the beginning of him truly putting it all together. That would be a big deal, certainly. So we expect Tershawn Wharton to end up on the IR. Taylor Stallworth has been signed. However, Herbie Teope of the Kansas City Star tweeted the Chiefs waived rookie defensive end Benton Whitley as the corresponding move. They added him a little bit back. They also, I believe, released Cortez Broughton from the practice squad after signing him a few weeks ago. So those are just sort of roster churning moves. Right now, then, Tershawn Wharton stays on the active roster. Basically what I think that means, just to keep extrapolating, Benton Whitley getting waived might be a good sign for Mike Dana's health. He obviously didn't play against the Raiders, but was questionable headed into the game. So maybe Mike Dana is on his way back. Not sure about where that's going to end up. But we know Taylor Stallworth to the active roster. Benton Whitley is out. Cortez Broughton released from the practice squad, and we wait to see Tershawn Wharton move. All that to say, there should be one more corresponding move that comes with him IRing Wharton. That'll be Trent McDuffie coming off. There we go. Boom. Solved it. I think we're good there. I think. Presuming that McDuffie is good to go, I could certainly see him being activated off of IR to put Tershawn Wharton onto IR, as McDuffie's eligible to return as soon as this week. On the suspension front, one more week still for Willie Gay Jr. He is back in the facilities. He was last week preparing. Again, about the halfway point, you can rejoin your team through your suspension. There's some other restrictions and stuff, but Willie Gay is still 1 week away. Trent McDuffie could absolutely play in this game against Buffalo, but you wonder what he will be asked to do. I would imagine if he does play, it will not be the typical 100 or 95% that you would typically expect from him. I imagine you're going to see, if you like Rashad Fenton or Jalen Watson more, I think you're going to see both of them playing plenty regardless. Joshua Williams was even out there late in the game against the Raiders. So a lot of very, very young, very unknown elements of this defense. And Taylor Starr. The Chiefs have also announced those moves. Plus, they've signed running back Wayne Gallman to the practice squad. That's a little bit interesting. I recognize that name from some churning of fantasy football rosters not very long ago. We will head out to Arrowhead Stadium in mere moments as head coach Andy Reid begins to address the media. We'll get an injury update from him, I presume, and then see what he expects from practice today and then what they're looking for as they look back on the Raiders and ahead to the Buffalo Bills. Live from Arrowhead on Sports Radio 810 WHB Kansas City. I'm Joshua Brisco, by the way. No Jason Anderson in today's edition of The Zone. I moved over to the big chair. Beards McFly still on the other side of the glass. Jason will be back tomorrow. We believe we are incredibly close to takeoff for Andy Reid. Beards, if you even want to start floating that audio up, wouldn't hurt my feelings one bit, so we can hit the beginning of the injury report, because I do think that these will be noteworthy additions. But right now, it's just the room making some noise. Here's Andy Reid.
All right. As far as the injuries go, the guys that won't practice today are Cook with a concussion, Fenton with the hamstring spasm, Lamons with the hip pointer, and then Wharton. So, and then you saw where Stallworth was elevated for Whitley. And I think that's it. Wayne Gallman we brought on to the practice squad. Anyways, with that, we look forward to the challenge of playing the Bills. We know they're very well coached and very talented, and so we've got to have a good week of practice starting today. Anyways, with that, time's yours.
Randy, what about Trent McDuffie? Is he going to?
Trent, yes, he's back. He'll practice, yeah.
So this officially starts this 21-day window. As far as Harrison Bucker, you're also expecting him to get on the field today as well?
Yep.
Andy, just since the order of operations, we didn't chat the day after the game. I was just wondering, did you get any sort of game report that indicated just from the officials on the Chris Jones call that whether or not they still stand by that?
Yeah, I haven't gotten anything yet, no.
Along those same lines, every team has an opportunity to submit at least 10 plays to the NFL officiating department for clarification or feedback. Without trying to get you fined here, is this a situation where you intend to submit a review on that?
Well, they'll let me know. Yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Andy, can that change coaching, the way they're calling roughing the passer now?
I think normally the league, if there's a question on something, then they come out with a video of what can be done and what can't be done. So we'll see what goes there.
Andy, I know you've spoken about this before, but just in looking at the arc of Travis's career, I wonder if you could speak to just how he came from I don't know if wild would be the proper way to say it, but he certainly needed to be harnessed a little bit. I just wonder if you could track that arc a little bit to where he is now.
Yeah, so Travis is a real smart kid, and he was the little brother. I had the big brother. He was the little brother, and sometimes the little brothers can get away with things that the big brothers can't. But listen, he came here. He was a little bit wild, but it was always in a fun, good way. Sometimes. So, but he's done well growing up, and he's doing a nice job now. Great leader, very hard worker, and that's been over the last I don't know how many years. I mentioned I can't even tell you how long ago it was, where he was a playoff captain, voted by his teammates as playoff captain. How many ever years ago that was? So,
were you still watching when he sort of pretended to start to dunk ball at the goalpost, and at this stage of his career, do you know he won't do that?
Yeah, I didn't think he'd do that.
You ever called Jason back in the early years and say, "Hey, talk some sense into your brother"?
That's tampering, so I can't.
With looking at Buffalo's pass rush, it appears to be one of the best in the league. I just wonder what sort of sets them apart from maybe teams that you guys have played so far this season.
Yeah, well, I think if you look at all their positions, they're solid and very, they're good players at all the positions. You don't see a lot of weaknesses there. They're well coached. They understand the scheme. I mean, they've been doing it now for a while, and they've got it. And so, that's all part of it. And Leslie is a phenomenal football coach. So I mean, he's got them playing hard, aggressive, understanding the scheme.
Your tree's talked a lot about your coaching tree. Just how proud have you been with the program that he's been able to build with McDermott?
Yeah, he's done a great job, phenomenal job, and that's a unique place to coach, in that it's a smaller town and they're very passionate, and I think they respect the game up there and understand the game, and I think they really appreciate what Sean's brought to them.
And you guys have been really good at coming back from big deficits like the other night since Pat's been here. Is it just a case of you guys are a high-scoring team no matter what the situation is, or is there something else you can put your finger on why you guys have been so good with your backs to the wall?
Yeah, listen, I think it starts with Pat. There's no panic if if you get behind, you don't want to be behind, but if you're there, he's not panicking, which would send a message to the other guys, really the rest of the team, that you're in trouble. I mean, but the guys always feel like they're in it with the way he handles himself. And then I'd tell you, I think the coaches do a nice job. They make adjustments and that are beneficial to helping you get kind of redirected.
Patrick has shown trust in Travis and Juju here early. How important was it to see the production supplemental behind in MBS and the whole?
Yeah, no, that's a positive. They're growing in this offense, and I think they'll continue to, because they're hard worker. I think they'll continue to that growth will continue. So we'll be able to see that.
Coach, we get Darius Harris here this afternoon. How impressed are you over his body of work over the last 3 weeks?
Yeah, great kid, first of all, and smart, and very hard worker. So he gives you, even when he's on the scout team part of it, he gives you 110% on the scout team. Phenomenal look. And so you just kind of figure that, listen, he gets in there, he's going to do fine. And he's been able to digest the defense and stay on top of that. And so everybody around him has confidence that he jumps in, and here we go. It's not, we don't feel like you're losing, taking steps backwards.
Coach, you've seen the Bills a few times over the last few years. What are your observations, I guess, of Josh Allen and how he's kind of matured throughout this offense and bringing everything together?
Yeah, I think he's done a great job. He's another one. He's a good kid, and I think he's playing well. You heard all the stories of when he was coming out about this and that, and you're always pulling for those guys that even do better than what was expected. So he's a good football player, tough kid, good football player, in a good system too. He's been blessed to have good coaches, which also helps.
And they must have some sort of that kind of same spirit you guys have, because they've had a come from behind win at Baltimore and things like that. Do you see some of the same things from him leadership-wise that you see from Patrick more up close?
Yeah, so I'm not in the room with him. I'm in the room with Pat every day. I already see him every day, and so it's different that way. But I think he's done a nice job, and you can tell by his teammates that they trust him, and that's probably the indicator we get from the outside without being there.
Coach, we won't get an official status on Trent. Is the expectation for him to do a full load, or is it like an ease in and wait and see?
Yeah, we'll see. He's been rehabbing, and we'll just see how he does. I mean, he's been going full speed in his rehab. So, but we'll just, we'll see how he does working back in.
And a couple more guys. Patrick mentioned just having a conversation with the offensive lineman on the field during the game. Just as a coach, can you sort of elaborate on just how much that does resonate, how much that does factor into a game?
Yeah, no, it's important, and the linemen appreciate that. Not that they don't know if things aren't going right, but that he's right there with you and fighting his tail off. I mean, you appreciate that as a lineman, and you can handle it. If that guy handles himself the right way, we always talk about if his closet's clean, then he can do that. He can, put the hammer down a little bit on guys, and they respond. So, and they all know he works hard. He's competitive, he's smart, and so they respect it when, if he needs to give him a little juice.
Coach, you had to count on Joshua Williams for a pretty big snap there at the end of the game. What's that say about him? He can come in cold like that and make a big play, and your depth overall at corner.
Yeah, so I always go back to Veach and the job that he and his guys do. This kid went to a smaller school. He's very intelligent, and he's big. But he hadn't played, obviously, at this level. But he jumped right into training camp and the OTAs and all and worked. And so you pull, again, for that kid and doing what he's doing. I think special teams has also helped him. We talk about the speed of the game. Special teams helps you with that for defensive players. Space awareness, it helps you with that. So he's really done a nice job growing on the special teams. And then he stepped in and had, arguably the biggest play of the game right there. So.
Anything else? All right. Thank you, Coach.
Andy Reid's press conference is brought to you by Robert Brogdon Buick GMC and Robert Brogdon's Olathe Kia. Robert Brogdon Buick GMC and Robert Brogdon's Olathe Kia. Visit BrogdonAutomotive.com. And by Andy's Frozen Custard. Andy's Frozen Custard. Enjoy the world's finest frozen custard at Andy's, made fresh every hour. Andy and Andy's, a winning combination.
Interesting stuff there from Andy Reid. He, first of all, really doesn't want to get fined for talking about refereeing. I don't blame him, but he just isn't really having it. We'll talk more about the other stuff later because Patrick Mahomes is at the podium right now.
We were talking a little bit about Travis the other day, but when you think about what makes him who he is, what stands out to you the most?
Yeah, it's the type of guy he is. Obviously, he's talented. I mean, to be that big and be able to run routes like that and have that speed. I mean, he could have had a ton of success really anywhere, but I think the way he's the type of guy he is, the type of guy how he works and how he's just a teammate, a great teammate. I think that's why he's kind of taking it to the next level. Is because I mean, everybody on that field they enjoy watching him succeed because of the type of guy he is every day.
And there was a time in his career when he starts making the move toward the goalpost that you might have thought he was going to go ahead and do that and maybe get a penalty. Did you have any concern he was going to actually do it, or you know him well enough now to know he'll reel it in?
I mean, you never know when he gets in the end zone what's going to happen. So it's like a lot of these guys. So I just kind of let them do their thing. They won't hurt the team. They might hurt their own pockets, but I think he's learned from a couple of those little fines that he doesn't want to do that too much.
This past summer, you and Josh got to further develop your relationship off the field with the golfing and everything like that. Just what do you make of the rivalry as it stands right now between you guys going at it? I know you don't go against the quarterback, but just the quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, when you go up against the other great quarterbacks in the league, you always want to win. You always want to compete. Josh is a great guy. I mean, he's a great quarterback, physically talented, can throw, can run, can really do it all. But he's a great dude too, and so obviously when we're on the football field, we were competing against each other, and we want to beat each other's teams. But I have a ton of respect for him and the player and person that he is.
What is the first thing that comes to mind when you think back to that game in January?
Yeah, I mean, I think to me it was battling through adversity. It was finding a way to win no matter what it took. I mean, that's a great football team, still a great football team, and we know it's going to come down to the wire every single time we play them. And so to see the guys respond, even when it kind of looked like it was all over, that's something that you'll always have.
You have a good record when your team when the Chiefs have fallen behind early in games by a bunch of points, like the other night. What changes for you in those situations?
Yeah, I mean, you have to have urgency, and you try to have urgency from the beginning of the game, but, I mean, it even gets upped whenever you're down like that. You know you have to kind of put points on the board. You have to kind of press the issue, I think our team responds well to that. That's something that I've done in my career so far. And, I mean, I played in the Big 12, and you always seem like you had to score points, so it's something I've done in my entire career.
Now, what is roughing the passer in this day and age?
Yeah, I mean, it's something where they're trying to protect the quarterbacks. I mean, they're trying to find the right medium of protecting those guys, protecting us, but at the same time letting everybody play football. And obviously, this last week was in a small window, a bad week as far as roughing the passer penalties. But if you look at the whole grand scheme of things, I think they've done a pretty good job at it, and I'm sure they'll learn from this and continue on the rest of the season and get even better at it.
Chris Jones says that's something that should be reviewed. How much do you agree with that?
It's a fine line. I mean, we saw the pass interferences and reviewing those. Sometimes when you slow the camera down to super slow-mo, everything kind of looks like it's either going to be roughing the passer or pass interference because there's always contact when you're playing football. And so I'm sure they'll look into that and see if that's the right decision. But at the end of the day, we have to just play by the rules that are out there. And obviously it hurt us this last week. In that one spot, but I think the guys responded well, and we found a way to win the game.
One of the differences from last year is Von Miller. From your film study right now, how has he sort of changed the game for them a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, Von's a special player. He's a Hall of Famer, first ballot Hall of Famer. He's won 2 Super Bowls because of his leadership and obviously his play. And it's someone that you have to know where he's at on every single play. And he's a Texas guy, man. Those Texas guys know how to play football.
Patrick, you mentioned talking to the offensive line during that game. Is that something that's strategic for you? Like, do you pick moments to do that, or is it kind of what comes to mind?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, for sure. You got to get the flow of the game. I think the best thing about our offensive line is they're competitive. There are some guys that want to compete and want to get out there. So a lot of times I don't have to talk to them. They know when they want to be playing better football. But I think at that time it was talking to them, talking to myself, talking to the whole team, and letting everybody hear it is you go out there and we got to compete. And I think there was a snippet of Trav talking. You heard them. They were bringing more energy. They were bringing it to us. And I think just having that urgency throughout the entire offense, I think that's what picked up our play as the game went on.
I don't know what sequence this was in, but I didn't see it till after the game, but there was a moment with you and Max where it looks like kind of brought the helmet to you. I don't know what impact that had on you, and were you looking for a penalty there after he does something like that, given what happened with Chris Jones?
No, I wasn't looking for a penalty. I kind of walked up to him, so it's probably my own fault. And so, yeah, I mean, he's a competitor. Max is a player, and I have a ton of respect for his game, but I was a little fired up, and he was fired up, and luckily we won the game, so I got the end. But we'll play him again later in the season. I know he'll be bringing it that one, too.
Was that part of what you're referring to, about creating your own energy at some point?
Yeah, you have to at sometimes. I mean, they were bringing the fight to us, and they were getting after us, and so I thought the guys responded, and that included me. It was we got to bring some energy and show them that we're not going to back down.
To that point, I know you don't care much about point spreads, but this is the first time you're going to be an underdog at home. Is that one of those things you use as some motivation?
I mean, it kind of is what it is. Our job is to go out there and find a way to win a football game, and it's a tough place to play at Arrowhead, and they've won here before, but we've also handled business before, so it's going to be up to us to go out there and handle business when it comes on Sunday.
Patrick, from your perspective, being with him throughout the week, I just wonder what has McCole done for you guys, just playing through this injury these last 3 weeks?
Yeah, I mean, he's tough, man. Obviously, it's not something that you want to deal with, especially early in the season. It's got to kind of hurt not only physically but mentally because you wanted to go out and have a big year. But he's battled through the injury. He's seen it. His reps have had to decrease because of the injury, and he can't be out there all the time. But when he's out there, he's battling, and he's trying to do whatever he can to get himself open and make plays happen. And I think y'all can see it. I mean, it's not something comfortable to play with, but that's a competitor that he is. He's going to go out there and try to do whatever he can to help the team win.
Okay, yes, thanks, Patrick.
Patrick Mahomes press conference brought to you by Xfinity Sports Zone. Xfinity Sports Zone, the ultimate sports hub experience, only from Xfinity. By Premier Volvo Cars of Overland Park, the only Volvo dealership in Kansas City, where luxury and safety meet. Premier Volvo Cars of Overland Park at 78th and Metcalf, or PremierVolvoCarsOverlandPark.com. And by Westlake Ace Hardware. Visit your local Westlake Ace Hardware today. Online at westlakehardware.com. Westlake Ace Hardware. Small projects, big know-how. Ask away.
There's Patrick Mahomes live from Arrowhead. Up next will be either Orlando Brown Jr. or Darius Harris. Harris stepping in for the suspended Willie Gay Jr. Orlando Brown, obviously, starting left tackle. Lots of interesting stuff from Mahomes. I know we won't have time to get through all of it right now. Maybe won't have time to get through too much of it at all right now. But interesting to see him as well in the video stream. Have a little smirk as he said it is what it is on being a home dog for the first time. I'm sure he doesn't need extra juice, but it is what it is. Feels like a little bit of code for it is something I've noticed. Here's Orlando Brown Jr.
Can you relay just that conversation, what that might have done for you guys as a unit?
Yeah, man, I think Pat does an amazing job, obviously doing his job as a quarterback, man, whether that be motivating, whether that be making the correct throws, putting the offense in the best position. I think, he's one of the best in the world at what he does. And during the second quarter, as an offense, we just kind of understood what we needed to do to, I guess, go out and win that game. And, the message was simple, man, just do your job.
It seems like Andy pressed you guys a little bit going into the Bucs game, and I know that Shaq had some of the comments, and then Patrick kind of said something, and not trying to ask you a tough question here, but is there any rhyme or reason to maybe why it's the O-line is starting slow a little bit and sort of needs to be kick-started at certain points?
Man, I really don't have an answer for you on that one. I think sometimes, man, football is football, you know what I mean, and it's not necessarily always easy. The flow of a game is different in every game. Obviously, the opponents you play are different. Game plans are different as well. And I don't want to say there's anything necessarily to point the finger at, but besides the fact that we got to come out how we finished in that second half.
Von Miller's the kind of guy that can move between the left and the right side of the defensive line. A little older, maybe a little wiser now, but what are some of the things that when you pop that tape on of him, how much has changed from over the years to what he's doing now?
I mean, not much, man. I mean, I think he's still having a ton of production, a lot of success. He's done a really good job. I mean, it seems like on every team that he's played on. But, I mean, he's playing at a very high level, an all-pro, Pro Bowl level, man, as a rush-in. And he's still one of the best and has been one of the best, man. As far as any drop-off, you can't really say that. You know what I mean? He's been able to manipulate his game and, in my opinion, just get better over the years.
How impressive was it that Nick Allegretti was able to come in and kind of give you that spot start there when he hasn't played?
Yeah, man, very impressive, man. You know, obviously it's always tough coming in the middle of a season, being in those type of positions when you haven't played in every single game up until that point. And I think he got a few snaps here and there, but coming in, man, and being able to do what he did for a full game is really difficult, man. I'm really proud of him.
Travis also mentioned after the game your leadership. I'm wondering, was there something you also said to the group at some point during that game?
Yeah, man, I don't really want to toot my own horn or anything like that, but, you know, I feel like I'm somebody that, you know, I'm very vocal on obviously getting the job done, and I think most importantly it starts with myself as a leader, making sure that I'm doing my job, making the correct blocks, making sure I'm taking the right proper footwork, blocking DNs, keeping Patrick clean, all those different things, man. But as far as what I said, you know, I feel like I'm very vocal. A lot of the time it's just emotion, so I can't really pinpoint anything.
Orlando Coach Reid was talking about the defense for the Bills and saying that they're stacked at every position. So when you just, right off the top, when you look at the Bills' defense, what is the biggest threat that you see?
Man, I think they got an incredible defensive line, and those two linebackers are really good as well. That's no short to Poyer or any of those DBs, but I think they have a really good front four, and those two linebackers that they play with are really, really good at what they do.
It seemed like Jarek's 30-yard run really got you guys going offensively on Monday. You had a big block on that one.
Yeah.
How important was that for you guys as a group just to get going offensively?
Yeah, man, very important. As you said, man, I think it helped spark a little bit of momentum. And Jet, I mean, he just kind of, I felt him behind me, pushing me, and I just see two defenders there. I just chose one, having to put him on his ass. But, you know, that's just part, like I said, man, that's just part of the game and part of the flow of a game as far as football. And, man, a ton of credit to Jet on that one, making all those guys miss and getting those extra yards.
Jet was complimented after his game for being a veteran and having the vision and the patience. How nice is it when you have a patient back there that kind of lets you set him up and spring him like that?
Yeah, man, it's always great playing. All of our backs here do an amazing job, in my opinion, with that, helping set up those blocks, put those defenders on you. You know, it always helps your job as an offensive lineman when you have a patient back like that.
Offensive line is just such an emotional position that you got to be up for every game, but it's almost impossible to be up for 17 straight regular season games, and yet you guys get everybody's toughest shot week in and week out. How do you balance that, especially, you know, in a game when sometimes you feel like maybe you are being outmanned a little bit, not punched?
Yeah, man, that's a hell of a question. You know, I think that Coach Hack does an amazing job with us week to week, making sure that we understand our mission and what we need to do to get the job done, to be able to go out here and win against these teams, and also with a similar mindset to dominate. Now, I know it doesn't always have that type of outcome, but Coach Hack does an amazing job, man, lining us up, making sure that we know what our responsibilities are as individuals, as a whole, as a unit. And, man, I give a ton of credit to him and the way that he prepares us week to week.
Orlando, not to harp on the other thing, but even if you don't remember the particulars of what you did say, obviously there was something going on that prompted you to be vocal in that moment. What were you seeing at that point?
Yeah, you know, man, just poor execution. You know, my play where I got beat clean by 5-5, Pat gets out of a sack, you know, a few other negated plays here and there, and just the understanding of the circumstances at hand, man. Just, you know, like I said, it's just a lot of emotion in those situations, and, you know, we put a lot on ourselves as individuals out there as football players, and, you know, especially me, myself specifically. And so I just think it was just the emotion of the situation and the circumstances of that game.
And then, like, when Patrick says something after that play you're talking about, like, I guess as a player you could take that multiple ways, right? I mean, you could own up to it, or you could be offended by something like that. What prompts you guys as a group to, you know, take it the other way?
Yeah, I think it's just the realness, man, of like who we are as individuals in that room, understanding the expectation for ourselves. You know, I think as individuals we're our biggest self-critics, and, you know, we all want to be the best offensive linemen out there and the best players on the offensive side of the ball. Yep. No problem. Thank you, guys.
That's some interesting stuff there from Orlando Brown Jr. I like Matt Derrick's question. I think he liked it as well. 17 games, you're going to get your opponent's best shot. Whenever you have a team that has come out flat a couple of times in this offensive line, being out-energized by the team on the other side, it kind of makes sense whenever you think about it through that prism. Not that it's acceptable, but that it would happen, and then you have the conversations that you just heard, both of Mahomes talking to the O-line, this has been a storyline, we played you that audio yesterday on the show, versus Orlando Brown being that guy for this offensive line group. An interesting dynamic on the offensive side. Let's go defensive with Darius Harris.
The pass game for sure. They have athletes at the quarterback position, receivers, running back. Overall, the running game and passing game, they have a very good team. So, just making sure we're on top of our things.
And Josh Allen is the kind of guy that can also hurt you with his legs. How important is it for you guys now to stay disciplined so you don't overextend on a certain play against him when he can run like that?
So we just have to be defining our assignment and, in our pass rush lanes, just making sure that everybody's on point, everybody's where they're supposed to be, and just try to bottle him in, because if we're undisciplined, then he can break it out of the gate and hurt us big time.
Obviously the team has been kind of, relying on you heavily the past couple of weeks. How do you feel overall assessment of what you've been able to do?
I feel good. Even before I got the chance to start, I prepared myself and kind of went about it as if I was a starter. So when the opportunity came, it was just time for me to actually showcase it to others who's not in the building, who's not around. But so far, everything's been good. I'm feeling confident. The guys around me been giving me that confident boost, and we just been making plays all together. And with the guys around, it makes it easier for me.
The last few years, you've kind of been that Swiss Army knife for this team at linebacker. You can play Mike, play outside, you can move around. How do you prepare yourself for being able to play multiple roles, knowing that you might change from week to week or even play to play?
Yes, you gotta. You can't just be, still at one thing. Obviously, to get on the field, you got to be ready at for me, any position. That way, I'm able to be the next man up and be able to give me some playing time. Whether it's at the mic, Sam or Will, just being versatile. I feel like that's a good trait, and being able to understand the assignment and execution of each position in order to get on the field and make plays.
You've come a long way since that first season that you had to spend, watching on the non-football list. What was that year like for you? What did you learn during that season?
Yes, I definitely learned a lot. Just how to be a pro, how to go about the game, and definitely the big thing I took from that first year was the mental aspect of it. Just kind of learning plays, learning how we run plays, how we call things, kind of seeing things from the defensive coordinator standpoint, and just understanding what to look for when I'm watching film, how to evaluate players, how to evaluate tape, and things of that sort. So I definitely, it kind of helped me grow mentally and on the football aspect of it, since I wasn't able to do as much physical.
How much did you, during the offseason, did you think back to that last time y'all played the Bills in the playoffs, the 13-second game? Did you ever catch yourself marveling at how the Chiefs were able to come back and win that game?
Oh, yes, that was definitely a big win for us. We got the win, and that's what we wanted. But I know those guys think about that. I know they're coming for revenge. They're a good team. They're hot. Good players on both sides of the ball. So just this year, come this weekend, we just got to make sure that we're on top of it and try to get the same result as last year.
For you personally, did you ever find yourself in amazement at that you were able to pull that game off?
Oh yes, most definitely. Just as a part of the team and as a fan of the game, just watching that, from the sidelines, from a close view. It was definitely some good football and just a play that will go on probably for the rest of the time, just in that short amount of time, and be able to drive down the field and get a score that, set us up to help us win that game.
When you think about how hard you worked to get this opportunity, not only do you have the opportunity now, made a huge play in the game against the Raiders with the best sack. How satisfying is that?
Oh yeah, it's definitely good, because I know the work that I put into it the previous couple of years that I've been here, and just going from all the way to off-season, my off-season training, my off-season preparation, just going into camp, going into the season, just staying ready and staying locked in as if I'm a starter. So when the time comes, I can just excel and just be natural at it.
Did you do anything different this off-season than you've done the past few years?
I think I just took my mental game up some more and just knew what I needed to work on, and knew that this was going to be the year that I needed to get on the field. And I knew with how things worked out, it was going to be a big chance for me to kind of make that chance to get on the field. So, honestly, just taking that next step as a player, mentally and physically.
Anyone else?
Thank you.
There's Darius Harris, just a genuinely excellent story on a whole bunch of levels for this team. He might have said the word mental or mentally 10 times. I think he certainly hit the half dozen mark. And I think sometimes that can be, hey, prepare like a starter, so whenever you do play, it's no big deal. That's a great idea, but actually pulling that off is much easier said than done. And you heard him talk about it some there. He spent that year on the non-football injury list, but it just became a year of mental preparation and working on becoming a pro. You heard Andy Reid say back on the first presser of the day that he was giving 110% on the scout team. So whenever he needed to play, everyone had confidence in where he was going to be, not just in the energy, but also going back to that mental aspect. Him saying he's always preparing as a starter. So when he gets out there, again, no biggie. That is difficult to keep that energy up, I have to imagine, whenever you're not seeing the field, especially when you're not even on the practice field, when you're in a non-football injury situation. But then to be right on the mental side to the point that Andy Reid can say with confidence that they have confidence in him as a coaching staff, for Steve Spagnuolo, for Brendan Daly, for Nick Bolton. They trust Darius Harris on the field, and so far into the season, he has validated that faith that they've had in him, both in the development side of, again, how he's brought it from the mental to being able to actually do it in regular season games, meaningful games against good teams. It's just one of those really excellent stories of a player who had plenty of excuses to pack it in or to take a setback as something a little more serious or a little more final. And he just worked through it. Now he's been playing really, really meaningful snaps for the Chiefs. I think he's a great story, and I'm glad we get to highlight it at least briefly here today. Again, I talked about Orlando Brown a little bit already. The McKinnon run and all of that was certainly fun. And again, I liked Matt's question about that idea of taking your opponent's best shot 17 consecutive times. That's going to be true. Teams are going to bring the energy for essentially the defending champions. Not quite, obviously, but the Chiefs have built that aura around themselves. And so if you come out flat against the Colts or the Raiders, again, no excuse making for that, but I understand how it happens. You just have to make sure if you start losing your grip on the game, you've got to get that grip back quickly. They never did against the Colts. They barely did against the Raiders. It's a dangerous way to live your life in the NFL, but the Chiefs have done it to the tune of only one loss so far, and overall a pretty nice start. From Mahomes, the Max Crosby moment, we now get his side of saying, quote, I kind of walked up to him, maybe taking a little bit of blame for that interaction. But as a lot of that conversation was about, again, it was about energy, creating it, finding it, making it for yourself, whatever. He said he was fired up. Max Crosby was fired up, and I'll take a fired up Patrick Mahomes, given pretty much any excuse to have that. Last thing from Andy Reid. He said Trent McDuffie was going at full speed through rehab. So I think, as the Bills have already said, Tre'Davious White will not play in this game as his window opens to return to practice before being fully activated. Indications right now would be that Trent McDuffie has a chance to play in this game against Buffalo. Even if he does, I wonder how much he will play. But that is a question for once we arrive there. So there are your pressers live from Arrowhead right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. It's The Zone. I am Joshua Brisco, moving over from the side chair to the middle one to host today in the absence of Jason Anderson. He'll be back tomorrow. Beards McFly still on the other side of the glass. Per usual, if you want to interact with the show, there are a lot of ways you can do it. You can reach out, of course, via the text line, which is, to be honest, again, that's something that Jason monitors more effectively than I do. So if you throw a message in a bottle to the text line and Jason sees it tomorrow for the first time, just know there's a chance. I'm not ignoring it on purpose. It's just a lot of spinning plates and moving screens.
Or he's just sitting there at home reading them with no context.
I think there's a non-zero chance that is happening. I think there is legitimately a chance right now that Jason is not just listening to the show and watching the text line. Might just be hanging out with his kid, watching, I don't know what kids watch anymore. Magic School Bus 2. I think they already did a reboot.
They did a reboot of
that. Watching Blue's Clues 2. They rebooted that one recently, I think. I don't know. I can see Jason just being at home right now, being dad of the year, reading the text line with no context. On the off chance that is happening, text line, feel free to give him some really surprising things to work with. Whoa, I can't believe Josh said that personal thing about you, etc. I don't know. Give it a shot. Or if you want to watch the show, you're able to bring you the video of the pressers today as well. Sometimes we can do that. Sometimes we can't. But those video feeds are always on the Sports Radio 810 Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter. So all 4 of those places you can watch the show, see me, see Beards, maybe see the pressers, and if we don't respond to you immediately, you can chat with other chatters, and we get some fun interactions in the chat around here, and I really enjoy it.
VF is epic on Twitch says, so nice of Mahomes to mention his friendship with you, Josh.
I asked him if he'd work it in. Just I think Andy Reid called me a great kid, a talented football player, I believe, something along those lines. I will say that as a person also named Josh, this has been a good week. Last week, not as much so. I would rather be compared to Josh Allen than Josh McDaniels. I'm sure Josh McDaniels would rather be compared to Josh Allen than Josh McDaniels. But at least I know when to go for it on 4th down.
Want to see more of The Zone? Watch the show live on the Sports Radio 810 WHB Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch. The Zone with Jason Anderson.
Pretty sexy.
On Sports Radio 810 WHB.
We'll have our usual hour with Mick Shaffer of KSHB 41 here in about 30 minutes. Beards, can we get the other half of that Chris Jones audio from the locker room here? I did want to play both chunks of that. Excuse me. We played you the first half very early in the show. I know it's been like 2 hours, but sometimes you just get a little extra personality from a little extra fired up Chris Jones. Sometimes you get your, Wednesday podium effort that's a little more reserved, a little more soft-spoken, a little more brought down from wherever we were all at from game day. And then sometimes you get Chris Jones just holding court in the locker room following a game. And this is what it sounds like whenever he's asked what he'll do differently in the future as a defensive lineman who has now frequently been penalized for his abuse of quarterbacks.
Hey, listen, this is a Christian-like league, man. I'm afraid that I stay off the quarterback, okay? No, I'm going to have to pick him up and carry him, lay him down nowadays, man, But, the ref, I get it. It happens so fast, and it kind of looked like that initially, but when you actually look at through the video and slow it down, you see I kind of braced. And the ref might have seen just a big 300-pound land on him, and I get it. Not saying the ref is wrong, but I'm just saying that those situations can affect the game tremendously. And especially you get in a playoff, a critical situation like that, a game-changing play, it can affect the whole, you know what I'm saying? Excuse my language. But, we just got to take initiative as a league and see what we can do better about it.
Chris, what do you think the impact was of that play afterwards? Because it certainly seemed to get you guys fired up, and probably at halftime too.
Yeah, man. We were, I think, more so making adjustments during halftime, and Coach Reid emphasized on the next play. We can't worry about what the refs call. The refs just doing their job, and we just got to worry about the next play. We can't let that play affect our next play. So.
Coach Reid was about as angry as I've ever seen him, though. Did you feel like that?
Hey, that's my guy. He got my back regardless. That's my dog. I love Coach Reid.
Did you get to talk to Derek also? It looked like you guys had a chance to talk for a good 20 seconds or something with Derek Carr.
Yeah, me and DC are friends. That's my guy, man. Heck of a quarterback.
Did you guys talk about the play at all? Was it?
Yeah, he told me he don't know how it got called. Me and him laughed about it. So, I'm a firm believer of what goes around comes around, but it'll come back around. No hard feelings. It'll
Seems like you guys got the better of most of the calls after that, though, at least.
No comment. No comment.
I'm not gonna do the whole ref take thing again. If you want to hear my fix for the refereeing issues, you can go get the first hour of the podcast after today's show. I'm not gonna relitigate all that. I don't want to talk about it anymore either. But I like getting to hear from players in those moments where he throws Derek Carr under the bus, which frankly, if he did, he would get a 30-yard penalty for. He throws Derek Carr into the bus a little bit. That even he knew that flag was ridiculous. And one element of that I do think is noteworthy also came up in an episode of Times Ours we did yesterday. Chris Jones saying, "Yeah, I saw Andy Reid that mad. That's my guy. He's got my back no matter what." It's another one of those moments. And again, I don't know if everyone hears this and very obviously is like, oh, they hear the same things that I do, or I don't know if I've just listened to a lot of press conferences and a lot of scrums and stuff, and I've listened to a lot fewer than most of the people asking the questions out there. Lebo and Vahe Gregorian have heard a lot more audio than I have. But even then, you get those little glimpses into, for lack of a better word, the culture. And what we were talking about on Times Ours yesterday was the idea that Andy Reid in that moment was coaching differently than we usually see Andy Reid coach. It wasn't just, quiet offensive genius with the Waffle House menu on the sideline. You don't see Andy Reid go to that move very often of let me go tear this ref in half so he knows that I know that he messed up. Andy Reid, you've heard now go back to postgame on Monday through Wednesday's pressers today. You have heard Travis Kelce, Chris Jones, Orlando Brown Jr., Patrick Mahomes, I think to some level Andy Reid as well. But you've heard all of the players talk about energy. Energy levels at the beginning of games, energy level against different opponents, how you create the energy, where you get it from. The defense has talked about Willie Gay being an energy giver. He's not out there right now. So who brings it? The offensive line might have needed a little bit of a zap. So Mahomes brought that. Orlando Brown brought that. Kelsey talked. That's not just Brown saying he did it. Kelsey talked about that after the game on Monday. Saying Orlando Brown's a vocal leader there. Wherever it is, though, that you're bringing in energy. And again, I know this is so amorphous as a concept compared to something like man versus zone coverage. But we talk so much about culture and coaching trees and what it means to be on an Andy Reid team or to have a players coach, or why Belichick disciples don't work in other places. And I think most of the time that we do that, we miss the point. Right now, it seems like Brian Daboll is doing an awesome job in New York. The Giants are 4-1 with a roster that is not... I'm speaking with limited information, but I don't think that roster is any better than it was last year. It might be worse, just as they have started to begin the rebuild process. They're 4-1 with Daniel Jones and a rejuvenated Saquon Barkley. Brian Daboll got hired for that job because of what he did as the offensive coordinator in Buffalo. At least on some level, you'd think, hey, we're hiring Brian Daboll because if anyone can make Daniel Jones as good as possible, this is the guy to do it. Look what he did with Josh Allen. Not only has Brian Daboll not turned Josh Allen into turned Daniel Jones into Josh Allen, do you know who's calling the plays in Buffalo? You know of him, excuse me, in New York. In New York. You know of him, but it's not Brian Daboll. He ran the offense in Buffalo, gets the head coaching job in New York, and then gives play calling duties to Mike Kafka, quarterback's coach the last few years here in Kansas City. He went and took that OC job in New York, and the offense has been really good with, I will say, limited weaponry. Whatever they're doing through the week is a big deal in New York, clearly. With that coaching staff, Wink Martindale as well, by the way, a guy who has been in control of defenses before. Brian Daboll brought people in and delegated. And whatever he's doing as a head coach seems to be reflected in all of that, but that's not usually how we do it. If Daboll was calling plays, we'd give him all the credit in the world for the offense. But he's actually delegated that off to Kafka. I find that fascinating. All of that going back to this idea of what is a good head coach? What is a good team culture? Andy Reid is very, 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 very rarely publicly the guy who is the energy giver for the Chiefs. I think it happens at halftime pretty frequently. I think it happens in practice pretty frequently. I think it happens behind closed doors pretty frequently. You even heard a couple players, I think Mahomes and Kelsey both, after the game, said they've seen Andy Reid get that mad before, but never on a sideline or never for a call or whatever. I've never seen Andy Reid do that on the sideline. And do you know what followed that? A lot of energy. From the team, sure, but from Arrowhead. Arrowhead had heat for Carl Cheffers to start the second half and throughout the rest of the game. In part because I imagine the 70,000 strong coach who's been doing this for a long time, when you see him filled with a righteous anger like that, that's an energy-giving performance from your head coach. Eric Bieniemy is that guy way more often than Andy Reid is. Andy Reid is much more often cool-headed peacemaker. You'll find that from other places. Spags, I'd imagine, also. Spags is a little more of the savant, well, the I'm looking for a very specific, like, karate word, Beards, like splinter, like a leader.
Sensei?
A sensei. Thank you so much. Sometimes you have a word you want and your brain just doesn't give it to you, and sometimes that happens on live radio. And then the only thing you can think of is a sewer rat named Splinter from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Spags has some sensei vibes. Brendan Daly is a yeller. I think having some diversity in your coaching staff in that regard is also probably a worthwhile thing. But in all this time we've spent talking about energy, the fact that Andy Reid was bringing his own from the sideline on Monday, I think is really interesting. I bet we will not see him quite that fired up against the Bills. Maybe someone will give him a reason to. I also think the Chiefs are going to be very prepared to come out with all the energy they can possibly muster for this game. We'll keep talking about Chiefs. Breaking news, Beards.
Via Pete Carroll, Drew Lock, quote, nipping at Geno's heels.
So is Drew Lock like the third best quarterback in football right now? Is that what Pete Carroll's saying? Geno's been like an unironic MVP candidate. I don't think he's going to keep it up necessarily. It's been better than I thought he was going to be. Oh, here's my last thing. I know you told me to break, Beards, but then you did that, and so now here's my brain. Seth Kaiser mentioned this on Twitter a couple days ago. I'd never really considered this. When the Chiefs took Eric Fisher number 1 overall, the debate around these parts was largely offensive line or quarterback. E.J. Manuel went first, but Geno Smith was the guy I remember talking about as a potential number 1 guy. For years, it looked like the Chiefs did the right thing. But what Seth said is, do you ever wonder if Geno Smith would have been Andy Reid's number 1 overall pick, rookie quarterback in Kansas City, what his career would have looked like? Now, somebody pointed this out in response. I think it might have been, I don't remember. Somebody pointed this out, like, I think they still, they moved on from Alex Smith and got Patrick Mahomes. I'm guessing Geno Smith would have had a ceiling still that would have allowed them to go get Patrick Mahomes if they still wanted to do that. This is more about the Geno Smith era replacing the Alex Smith era, not Geno Smith being the Chiefs starter for 15 years. And it obviously, fundamentally, does not matter. But I found it kind of interesting. And I find it interesting to account for how much situations impact quarterbacks, because I think that very, very often we don't give that enough credit. Geno Smith resurgence. Apparently the Drew Lock resurgence is just a...
Follow the show on Twitter at J810Anderson, at JB Brisco, at Beards McFly, and at Sports Radio 810. The Zone with Jason Anderson. On Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Mick Shaffer will be in a little bit. In the meantime, something happened yesterday that I began getting reports of during yesterday's show, continuing to roll in. I have since verified this. You may have recalled that occasionally I speak about former quarterbacks. Occasionally,
Specifically, former Dallas Cowboys quarterback.
Well, specifically former quarterbacks who are Hall of Famers. You know, I have another stat that I will deliver for you momentarily, but one of them is near and dear to my heart in particular. Had a nice little day on Twitter around Chiefs Raiders when this moment happened. And without any other further explanation, I would just like to offer you a little snippet of the Dan Le Batard show with Stu Gatz from yesterday as they were recounting Monday night's game.
Aikman did that last night while Aikman sounded concussed a couple of times last night.
Aikman was one of the more concussed quarterbacks of our lifetimes.
That's correct. And during the game, he was getting the teams wrong, and he had Frank Clark playing for the Raiders.
Yeah, Aikman kind of does that. It's been alleged that Aikman stopped caring quite a few years ago, where he's just like, I know everything I need to know. There wasn't a big celebration for when Mahomes tied his passing record. I was disappointed by that.
Did you guys see the stat? Because I know Mike Schur did some of this yesterday, but Joshua Brisco says Mahomes has now thrown 100% of Aikman's touchdowns in 41% of Aikman's games. 41% of Aikman's games.
Blessed. My favorite part of that, actually, is that Dan gave me credit and used me in the same sentence as beating Mike Schur to the punch of The Office and Parks and Rec and The Good Place and whatnot. Gonna see if I make that my alarm ringtone every morning. I wonder if I'll get out of bed on time. Maybe that will jolt me awake. By the way, just if anyone's interested, Patrick Mahomes has 95.95% of Joe Namath's career touchdown passes in 52.7% of Joe Namath's games. As our friend Rudy Salazar would say, cool Joe.
Hockey.
The Zone with Jason Anderson.
Mick, you're a big Diamondbacks fan. It was the Pirates that they were facing off against last night.
I love D-bags, not D-backs.
Weekdays from 10 to 2 on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
That explains why he still showed up today. Mick Shaffer, KSHB 41, in studio with us for the hour. Hey, Mick.
What's going on, Josh? What's going on, Nathan?
I'm doing okay. Nathan. Is there a Nate? Did Jason leave a Nathan here?
Beards, would you go by Nathan more or Nate?
Nathan.
He was a two-syllable Nathan. They got one syllable.
Biblical?
Beards. That's got to be a biblical thing, right?
I believe so, yes.
Well, it's in the Bible. Yeah, Nathan
I mean, it's a biblical name, yeah. I'm just
Um,
curious about your parents' sort of logic. No Jason Anderson today. Josh Brisco, Beards, Mick Shaffer.
Do you ever go by just Beard, singular?
Curtis tried to get mustaches started a couple times, but that's about it.
Was this, I feel like I don't know the origin of the nickname. Was it from here?
It was an intern nickname when I was first here.
That's awesome.
Yeah. It was at one point going to be apparently Beards McSweater Vest.
Even though I literally never wore a sweater vest.
You didn't like day one? I always
Never.
assumed that day one you wore a sweater vest.
Never owned one in my life.
You occasionally, Mick, have you ever seen Beards dressed up?
Maybe he shaved one into his face with that beard.
Right. Can we get Beards on sound off sometime, like an NBA,
Absolutely.
like tip off or something? Because seeing Beards,
We've never had an NBA question, but
seeing
we would
Beards
have one.
without a hat and in just a collared shirt it was worth going to his wedding just to see that.
He would show up at the station, and I would be like, "Can we help you?"
Yes, absolutely. Backwards hat and a hoodie is Beards McFly.
Yes.
Collared shirt and brushed hair, that's Nathan Wilhelm. I don't know that man.
So you got married without a hat on?
I did, yes.
Unlike Kelly Olynyk, I think?
Yeah, that's who it was.
Kelly Olynyk did
With a hat on?
had his backwards hat on for all of his wedding photos and presumably the wedding itself. Yeah,
Weirdo.
I don't know.
He is a little weirdo.
We'll get to Sad Fans on Reddit, Raiders edition here in just a minute. We're going to hit it in the first segment of this hour. Shot clock reviews, next segment. I had a bunch of great ones. I forgot to write them down, and now here we are again. But did you see what the Dolphins did, Mick, to try to refocus for this week?
Yes. They took the ping pong table, I believe, out of their locker room.
This one specific extra detail that I didn't hear at the beginning when Beards brought this story as breaking news in the first hour. McDaniel said Tyreek Hill and the rest of the team captains decided to take the Dolphins ping pong table out of the locker room in an effort to focus more intently on their upcoming opponent. No shade to Skylar Thompson. Rooting for Skylar Thompson. Skylar Thompson season. I think right now their problem is that they're on their third-string quarterback.
That's probably it.
I don't know if the ping pong table has anything to do with that.
That's probably it. Maybe though, Skylar was playing the most ping pong.
They went, hey, through the season so far, Teddy and Two have been locked in, but Skylar's just a ping pong guy.
And I don't understand that. When you're in the locker room, you're not studying film.
Yeah.
You're obviously not running plays.
Right.
You're showering. You're getting ready.
Hanging out.
I don't know if that will add to any of the focus or the preparation, but it's a good, what's it called? Like a, kind of like a placebo. Right?
Yeah.
Kind of like a red herring.
It's a thing you say that you're doing to focus more.
Yes.
So people know you're focusing.
Yes.
Here's where it's sent to us, unsurprisingly. What is the best full-size table game?
I saw that and I voted.
Oh, you voted. Okay, so your options here again. Ping pong, billiards, air hockey, foosball.
There are 3 great choices there. 2 great choices. 1 good choice. 1 trash choice.
Really? Okay. Start.
In my opinion.
Yeah, go ahead.
IMO.
What's the trash one?
Foosball is the worst game ever invented, and I'm probably saying this because I'm one of the worst players at it.
Okay.
I
Interesting.
hate it. I don't get it. I'm like, okay, these guys, they just move this way, right? And I could spin it some. Oh, wait, I blocked it because I didn't have my left hand on one of these other knobs over here, and I hadn't turned it sideways enough to allow it to go past and hopefully into the goal. I hate foosball.
It's an ambidextrous game and a bit of a random one, I think.
Very random.
Which is why I think foosball on this list. Please let me finish my sentence. I don't want you to hear me say something I don't mean. I think foosball is the game on this list best to play against a drastically different skill level. You've got an 8-year-old that's bored at the family cabin. play some foosball. You can't beat them so bad that they're going to cry. They're going to score on you, whatever. I would not, and there's a foosball table downstairs if you want to get in some reps between shows. We can go work on that after the show today.
I don't even want to practice. I don't want to get good at foosball.
But I get it. I am not enticed that much by foosball. What's your bronze medal here? Not that enthused by it, but it's fine.
First, let's stay on foosball. The best thing that ever happened to that table game was Friends. Maybe the only good. Did you not watch Friends?
I've seen a good chunk of Friends. I don't know the foosball thing.
Joey and Chandler played it like every episode.
Got it. Okay.
It was like a centerpiece of their apartment.
Got it. So
I play it. I get Charlie horses from like the sticks.
Well, you got to play a violent version of the sport. I mean, that's and it is a sport. I mean, we can agree on that at least.
Sure we can.
So what's your bronze medalist on the
air hockey? It's a lot of fun.
Okay, but not. Boy, I'm surprised. I'm surprised by the order here. Beards is air hockey at 1 guy.
I can get behind that.
I think I can too. Air hockey is very fun.
So much fun.
Crummy versions of it are still pretty good, but there is certainly a drop off. I was looking at a mini 10-in-1 table on Amazon when we were talking about all this. So I have room for a small table, probably not a full size thing. They called it push hockey. If there's no air, I don't know if I want to. I don't know if I want
There's
push
no
hockey.
air. How do you even play? If
It's just a smoother surface, I guess. I don't know. That doesn't look the same. I like air hockey though. So what are your 1 and 2?
Well, you know my 1 and 2.
Well, with the order of 1 and 2. The order of your 1 and 2. Heads and shoulders above the rest.
So I grew up my entire life. We had a ping pong table in my basement, and I was one of the better players in Caldwell. Because maybe there weren't any other ping pong tables in town. I don't know.
Still true.
And I played. We got really serious about it in college. I've got my one at my home here now, and so that's my number 1. We got a pool table growing up at some point, and so that's a lot of fun. I think I maybe based it on how good I am at them.
That makes a
I'm
lot of
much better. I'm the best at ping pong and the worst at foosball.
That makes sense because that also is directly correlated to how much you're enjoying it. Yes. You know, you're better at it before. I like ping pong a lot. I would have ping pong at 1 or 2. I think. I've played a decent amount of pool, and never been good enough at it to feel good playing it. So it would probably be 3 or 4 on my list because I just sort of feel like a child, asking for the little stand, so I can reach across the table because I can't do a behind the back shot. That's not in my bag. So. If you'd like to vote, at JB Brisco at Sports Radio 810 on Twitter. The poll question's out there. Currently, billiards. I just forgot to not be confusing. I've never said billiards instead of pool in my life.
Snooker.
I'm afraid to say that on the radio. It just
had a lot of shuffleboard nominees as well.
Yeah, I feel like
shuffleboard is I've learned
table, though,
so
right?
much. Yeah, it's not
skinny.
like a.
They're all different
like
tables.
Yes, it's not. It's a rectangle still, but it's a very skinny.
Right.
Rectangle.
So you have a big shuffleboard. I
have a buddy
have
that
no
has
problem
it, and
seeing
we
you be good
play
at
a
all these.
lot of shuffleboard
That makes
and
sense.
bet some money and getting a lot of fights over it.
Oh, that's good.
It's great.
Is that your best bet some money, getting some fights game? Or are you were you a beer pong? Are you still a beer pong savant? I can see you being great
I feel
at beer
like when
pong.
I was in college, beer pong was not a thing.
Oh,
Now, that
really?
was the 90s.
Yeah.
So I feel like it came around maybe about 10 years later. So
Okay.
never was a big beer pong. We played quarters a lot.
I've barely ever played quarters.
Different generation.
That's what it is. That's our
Different.
generational gap.
Played
I
some
guess.
flip cup.
Played a tiny bit of flip cup. The beer pong. I like throwing things into other things. It's just a small, shrunk down sport, which I guess is also why ping pong makes sense.
We would play ping pong get tough, which if you lost, you would pull your shirt over your head, and then somebody could hit a ping pong ball at your bare chest as hard as they could.
I've had an example of this already happen to me at this station.
I believe that Mick's Get Tough story may have been the origin point of how this ended up as a punishment.
Yeah, we got tough once on a show.
It got real tough. It was some sort of prediction thing. Beards lost.
It was the
spun the wheel.
March Madness.
Do you want to? Why don't you just give us just a brief reminder of that for an audience that maybe
the
hasn't
last
heard,
time I got tough.
Maybe hasn't heard of the last time that it got. Oh yeah, because you got toughed at one point.
Well, you return. It's always
within all of that.
It's always a two-way street there, right?
Sure,
you
right,
partner
right.
up. You can't just toughen up somebody and not expect to get tough.
Well, that's what happened to Beards. Beards got toughened.
I had lost the bracket challenge.
That's right.
I spun the wheel of punishment. I got ping pong firing squad. There were about 9 or 10 people downstairs in the front lobby, all deciding to throw ping pong balls at me for a minute straight.
Most of us were hitting them with paddles.
Yes, that is true.
Yes.
That is true. Who
Not
was
all
it?
of us, though.
A lot of velocity after those paddles.
Do you know who it was who was not using a paddle? Jamie Bluma.
Throwing it 90 miles an hour.
I can tell the difference.
90. I mean, just hauling them. Beards afterwards looked like he had been attacked by an octopus.
I did have
we made
a rule
perfect
where it
round red dots.
Yes.
It was a minute, but it was like 50 seconds where I had my shirt on and it was at the front. And then no.
It was some shirt on, some
It was
shirt
part
off,
shirt
some
on,
back,
shirt
some
back.
front.
Yeah.
I will say this: rewatching that video somewhat recently, I did not feel good about my role in any of that, and it wasn't my fault.
Out of the other options that were on that wheel, one of them, which was eat a scorpion, I was totally okay with what I got.
Did you have goggles and a cup on?
I had sunglasses on, and then I just covered.
Okay.
Did you have goggles and a cup?
Oh,
no. He had sunglasses and then one of those Colligan cups from the break room, just held down there, and just in case. No offense, Beards. I don't know. Those cups aren't very big. That's what I was going for. Disposable.
You didn't need like one of those 64-ounce Turbises.
He went to Quick Trip. He got a big cue. He came back and was getting ready.
Just brought a sled, one of those little disc sleds.
It was like Captain America's shield.
I think I had a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles one actually when I was younger. So there's
the sled.
Yeah.
Wow, that's exciting.
So there's a full circle.
Full circle. That's the second Ninja Turtles reference of the show today. I had a Ninja Turtles cup growing up, actually. You gonna say something, Mick?
I heard the first one.
The first Ninja Turtles reference? Oh, thank you for listening. I appreciate it. I couldn't think of the word sensei. What I could think of was Splinter. So that's where my brain is currently occupying. We can look ahead to Chiefs Bills later. We can do that as we're going to have a whole show on Friday. It's only Wednesday. We talked to you on Monday. We didn't, I guess, talk about the game on Monday, but
no. I mean, have you guys even? I mean, have you broached the subject of the Chris Jones penalty at all?
No, we haven't really talked about that. Which one?
Travis
The one where he didn't get held,
or Devontae Adams? Yeah.
Do you have any takes you need to get off your chest before we bring in Sad Fans? Because I think Sad Fans is the gem of this show today.
I won't, because I feel like any takes that I drum up from that game, they're going to take 50 minutes, the rest of the show, to unpack.
That's true.
I hate that saying, a lot to unpack, but there is from that game.
Legitimately, there is.
There's a lot of luggage.
Why don't we let Raiders fans do the heavy lifting? And then if anything inspires us later on, we can talk about that. Shot clock reviews in a little bit. But first, every week during the Chiefs game, Beards puts on his hazmat suit and he begins to tunnel down into the subreddit of the losing team at the moment. At some point, Beards, I'm sure you were in the Chiefs subreddit. Did you
yes.
venture in there a little bit?
I think most of my stuff that I gotten in the first half of the game was from the Chiefs Reddit.
Makes sense.
And then thankfully, nobody will ever have to hear those again.
Tide's
or
turned.
At all, because I'm the only one that knows what they were.
Well said.
Thank you.
You have a sucker in there or something right now?
Just my tongue. I don't know what that meant, but
I don't either. But it added. Just mark it again. This whole 30-second chunk, just you can save for later. Chiefs fans were sad, but then lost to history. Raiders fans were sad, so Beards did this.
And now, a list of things that Las Vegas Raiders fans said on Reddit. I'm already upset and nothing has happened yet. I'm expecting a flag on every positive play for us. Carr unaware in the pocket? No. Travis Kelce is inevitable, I swear. Can we have one game where Kelce doesn't sun on us? Let's beat ourselves. Why not? How do you start off so hot and fizzle out so badly? LOL, like the football Viagra wore off or something. Well, we got 18 minutes of good football. Hope someday these genius play calls will amount to an open receiver. Look, at least the Raiders are consistent. Here comes a Carr underthrow and pray for a flag.
Yep.
LOL, this team. Yay, we love the refs now. Stupid Missouri Hicks. No true Raiders fan was confident when it was 17-0. I wonder if these referees forgot in the second half that the Chiefs are also capable of committing penalties.
More or less.
My toxic trait is I believe I can easily lock up Kelsey. Keep Jacobs, Crosby, Carlson, burn the rest to the ground. The only guy that's caught a pass in the red zone and no one thinks we should double team him. I swear to God, I might not watch the Raiders until we fire McDaniels. Okay, that's a lie, but the guy's a moron. McDumb is not head coach material. Time we move to another city. Let's try Boise. McDaniels is gone after this. Off donkey.
Wow, good Lord.
I hate this sport. Can we start a petition to fire McDaniels and hire Bieniemy? I really miss Gruden. No way he would try for 2. The Chargers could not have done a better job of throwing away a game. We told Bisaccia to take a hike so we could pick up Mr. Bad Plays. McDaniels deserves to be shot out of a cannon and into a pit of fire. Not a Raiders fan or hater until you allow Travis Kelce to score 4 touchdowns when you knew the ball was going to him every single time. Y'all. McDaniels will find a way to lose during a bye week. Is anyone okay with tanking and using this season to gel and winning the Super Bowl next year? Us. I've said it for 3 years now. Waller, overpaid prima donna.
Wow.
I'm not saying I'm a football genius, but this coaching is whack AF. Comment. If Gruden were still here, would we be 1-4? Reply. No, we'd be 4-1 or 3-2 at worst. We'd then go 7-2, and then lose 6 of the next 7 games to finish 8-9. Can't be rigged when Renfro runs into Adams to blow the game. How do you get a defensive holding call on a kick? What the f*** are they holding for? The imaginary running back? F*** these refs. Mahomes just can't lose right.
That's fair.
I'd like to formally apologize to everyone here. I touched the money and bought a Renfro jersey this offseason, and this is now 2 games that he has lost for us in the last play of the game. Sure, it was death by a million paper cuts again, and it's not entirely his fault, but God, for you, the day the Raiders disgraced your village was the worst day of your life. But for me, it was Monday. Waller gave up on this team. Renfro wasn't ready to come back. Dog team. Comment. 2 Raiders running into each other to lose the game. That is our season in a nutshell. Reply. If you don't like that, you don't like Raiders football. Response. I don't like Raiders football. And now, the runner-up. I hate that I love this team. And now, the winner of things that Raiders fans said on Reddit. Comment. Get me Josh McDaniels emails, I'll take it from there. Reply. Blithering idiot at Raiders.com.
The Raiders only know one way to unseat a head coach right now. So some emails.
I've never been on Reddit, but I'm missing out, apparently.
It's nice to let Beards do the heavy lifting. I will say that. You do not necessarily want all of Reddit.
Is this like one big forum, one big page, or are you bouncing around to a lot of different sites?
So it's mainly the Raiders subreddit that I go to, or just the team that the Chiefs are playing against, and then they will have a specific game thread where it is literally just everybody commenting in a row about the game, and so I'll just be refreshing that, grabbing comments, and that's why it's kind of a more like.
And it's kind of like a message board.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's sort of a comment section meets message board, because you can also upvote and downvote things. So I imagine that at some point Beards sorts by, the votes. And so if there's anything really good, you may have missed it, right? Otherwise, you can just go chronological and ride the wave as it goes to hear exactly when Hunter Renfrow gets turned against.
Oh, wow.
I don't know about the other thing.
Mark that.
Yeah, that one's a freebie.
It's a tragedy every week.
It is so dramatic. It makes me so happy every time.
So wait, do you do like when the Chiefs lose?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Sad Chiefs fans?
Yep.
We did that on Tuesday. We did it on Tuesday after the Colts game. So
either missed it or forgot.
I mean, you weren't here, so I don't expect you to be listening when you're not here. I was shocked to find out you were listening as you were driving in, apparently. Like, the fact, if you could listen...
That's my preparation. My research.
That's some incredible work for the standard of the zone sets.
I'm an equal opportunity finder of sadness. So
yeah,
if the Chiefs lose, Chiefs stuff, anybody else loses, it's time for them.
My favorite was let's move to a different town. Try Boise.
Let's try Boise. Let's just try. Let's just see. Currently playing in a giant Roomba.
The Boise Raiders.
Yeah, I think that sounds good.
On the blue turf.
Wow.
Silver and black and blue.
And blue. That probably could have been a headline after, like, Devontae Adams and Hunter Renfrow ran into each other, you know? Silver and black and blue.
So you guys, well, you guys were here, right? You weren't at the game.
Yeah,
so you were like me. I was on set about ready to start sports, like literally 30 seconds away.
Whew.
So it's a weird deal. So it's not a weird deal, but we can't air highlights while the game's going on.
Right, sure.
Another broadcast. So it was
Sure.
on Channel 5. And so I have AP images ready of like Kelsey flexing after a touchdown, Kelsey flexing after another touchdown, times 4.
Yeah.
Devontae Adams catch. So I just kind of do play-by-play with pictures.
Right.
That's what we do while the game's still going on. So we have that queued up, ready to go. But there's like 41 seconds left. I'm like, okay, switch it around. I'm doing the highlights. I'm going to stall until the clock
Until
hits
the game
0.
ends.
But then the pass to no one happens, and you see the back judge just pointing. I'm like, he's pointing at a flag. They had to have thrown a flag.
Yeah.
No way. I mean, and then you see the collision there. I'm like, oh gosh, Chiefs got away with one. No, they didn't. Apparently,
No, apparently not.
No, they didn't.
I imagine they were taking the refereeing pretty well. This is one place where Beards has begun to self-edit throughout the life of sad fans. Eventually, 400 comments about how much the refs love Patrick Mahomes or how much the broadcasters love Patrick Mahomes and hate their team. Eventually, that drags on you a little bit.
It kind of becomes noise.
Yeah, exactly. Was there as much vitriol for the refs as expected following the second half of the game?
Yes.
Okay, very good. I assumed it was.
There was nothing.
There
that was like really funny.
Right.
Just whereas like some of the Chiefs stuff was actually pretty decent. But again, they won, so we're never going to hear that.
If you want to get in sad fans, you got to be funny about it.
Yeah.
You know, and some fan bases are better at that than
Or
others.
just like obliviously mad.
Yeah. Blindingly mad.
What's more penal?
Mark that one just in case. I don't know.
A 10-yard penalty for holding on offense, but you get to keep the down. Replay the down.
Mm-hmm.
Or a 5-yard penalty on the defense, but it's an automatic first down.
I hate that defensive holding's an automatic first down.
I don't understand it.
Here's where it makes sense is if it is.
I like it during the game. Let me tell you.
Sure.
It worked out.
If it's 4th and 1, okay, no, hold on. If it's 4th and 6 or further, and a team is going for it, you don't want to have your corners be able to just grab the receiver by the shoulder pads and just try to get away with it in hopes of only it giving one more opportunity to the offense. But that doesn't happen very often. And if it's 4th and 15 and a team's playing for a prayer, or much less kicking the field goal, I don't get it. I don't enjoy it. I did enjoy your tweet. You tweeted about analytics, and I got nervous. I was like, oh, God, am I going to have to cut Mick out of my life? Because that's how I handle things.
Yes.
Kind of an Aaron Rodgers absolutist. And then you tweeted something along the lines of, I think we've lost the meaning of the word analytics. Any number that I don't like is analytics. Something along those lines. PFC Commenter had one that was also along those lines. But I was excited to then get to bring, I should have pulled up the actual tweet. I was excited to bring that back with you today because I feel like we have found our common ground on the current state of talking about numbers around football. No words mean anything anymore. Anything with a sports number is an analytic, and we've totally lost the plot. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that was my tweet word for word.
Oh, did I get it? Did I quote it correctly?
Yeah, I think so. I think it was the one about like when they went for 2, when the Raiders went for 2. And I have a theory on the Chiefs' decision. But first, the Raiders, when they go in for 2, I said, okay, I want to see the numbers on that. And I'm sure there's Twitter accounts that I'm sure if they're out there you follow.
I have your actual direct quote here also.
Because we confuse, and I've said it before on the show, I think we sometimes confuse analytics with just being ballsy.
That was the word. That's the Mick word of the day. I just think we confuse analytics with just being ballsy. I think you're 100% right. Josh McDaniels just went for it to be aggressive because of how he felt about the Chiefs getting the ball back. He didn't want to play for a tie because you don't want to take this team to overtime. I understand that. That was not some like analytical slam dunk from all my dorks on Twitter. It was pretty much a toss-up. And Josh McDaniels made a coaching decision, which is fine. Coaches have to do that sometimes.
I wonder now, okay, Andy went for 2 there, which makes sense. Make it a 2-possession game. If you don't get it, it's still your standard 7-point lead. But in this new NFL, especially playing desperate AFC West teams, knowing that, okay, if we don't get the 2-point conversion, we're leaving ourselves open to the other team going for 2.
Yeah.
Maybe you just kick it there and take it to 8 points, which puts still pressure on the other team because they've got to get the touchdown and the 2-point conversion. They got to score twice there. Maybe you just kick it there. Like when they went for 2, I'm like, makes sense. 2-possession game. I'm always thinking possessions.
That's a good way to do it.
17's big. 17's so much bigger than 16. 9's so much bigger than 8 in football.
Right.
But after that, I'm like, okay, if you're playing the Raiders, who are this just kind of caged animal at this point, ready to attack, they're trying anything. Maybe you don't open the door and leave it at a 7-point game because a 7-point game isn't like the other teams coming up just to tie you anymore.
Right.
They
have a chance to win if they
ballsy.
want.
It's the word of the day.
I was surprised when they went for 2 there.
Which one?
When the Chiefs did. I was surprised both times, honestly. I was not yelling at my TV, go for 2. I was glad that they did because it's the Chiefs' offense. I wonder if Harrison Butker was healthy, if they would have just kicked it and made it 8. Yeah. Because an 8, to doing all this math, this is really good. This is going to be good stuff
here.
Just
missed a field goal from about that distance.
Right, exactly. 8 is more than 7. 9 is a lot more than 8 in the football world. 8 is quite a bit more than 7. It's not a 2-possession game in the traditional sense, but it's like a possession and a half.
Yeah.
You have to score twice. You just know one time it'll be at the 2-yard line. I would have been okay with an 8-point lead there on the Chiefs' behalf, and it probably would have been a little less stressful if that would have been the way it shook out ultimately. But not every ballsy coaching decision is numbers-based, which has been true for decades. I think a lot of us have forgotten about that. Yeah. We had a great conversation with Cynthia Frelund earlier today.
And I actually think, like Gary Lezak and I were talking about this when it was at least apparent to us because we'd just seen the Devontae Adams catch that wasn't a catch. I'm like, okay, they're going to win this because their kickers made 40 in a row.
Yep.
We talked about, like, I said, as a Chiefs fan, you almost want them to get that 2-point conversion there because that injects a sense of urgency into the offense for that final drive. You're not protecting anything. You're not protecting a 1-point lead. You have to go back out and go get it and go win the game, which Patrick Mahomes in the offense under Andy Reid is a lot more lethal that way.
Yes.
So when they got a couple of first downs and punted, I'm like, yeah, I mean, you don't have that sense of urgency. That's why I would rather almost my teams be down by 4 late than 3, because 3, you get to the 30 and you start thinking, protect the field goal, and you take away that edge. When you're down 4, you got to go score. It's pin your ears back the entire drive because you got to get 7.
We'll continue having...
Or 6 or 8, as we've
you're right.
established
all these points matter. Right. We will continue having these penal conversations with Mick Shaffer of KSHB 41 on the other side of the break. Shot clock reviews next in the zone.
Follow the show on Twitter at J810Anderson, at JB Brisco, at Beards McFly, and at Sports Radio 810. The Zone with Jason Anderson.
Back in the day, it was so easy to murder somebody. They didn't have cameras all over the place.
Absolutely.
Nobody had phones. Nobody's tracking anybody. Like, if you got caught murdering somebody, you were just a sucky murderer.
On Sports Radio 810 WHB.
That's the voice of Mick Shaffer, KSHB 41, in with us here for the hour. I'm Joshua Brisco. I'm always here, but usually Jason Anderson talks first. He's out today. Beards McFly on the other side of the glass. I don't want to take a shot clock review for you, but have you watched Dahmer?
I'm like 7 episodes in.
Okay, how many episodes are there?
I think 10.
Okay, very good. Beards, are you watching Dahmer? You just pulled the mic up like maybe you had a thought.
My wife was watching it. I just kind of caught it by osmosis just because I was, playing video games or whatever next to her.
Okay,
So.
got it. Have you had to fight the urge to say the phrase you just said in Borat's voice when referring to your beloved?
No, because I've never seen the Borat.
I actually also haven't.
You haven't seen Borat?
No, oh, Jason! Oh, you're back! He's in the rafters! Do you think Jason's seen Borat?
Probably.
Oh, yeah. He's seen every movie. Borat's great. Borat 2 might be funnier.
Really? I've got them both downloaded. I just need to watch it at some point.
There is a scene in Borat 2, if you've seen it, you know which one I'm talking about, that is so unbelievable. You can't believe it's part of a movie. I just can't believe it.
Is this involving a former mayor of
Nope,
New York?
and it's not even that one.
Okay,
No.
very good. All right, well, I just need to watch them both. I certainly have to watch them both before I get married because
It involves like a Sadie Hawkins dance, something like that.
Okay. Oh boy, I'm nervous, but also also excited. So no Dahmer review yet, but this is probably a shot clock review coming in the near future once you wrap up the series. Are you going to make it through the series, or have you like bailed after 7?
My 24-second shot clock review, I'm not going to bail, of Dahmer I would have like 3 words because that's about how long he takes to respond to somebody in the show. He's very slow and deliberate, and it is an uncomfortable watch.
That makes
I will
sense.
Tell you that.
I'm glad that's true for you. I'm glad you didn't say it is a.
And I watch a ton of true crime.
It's
I've seen
more uncomfortable than
multiple BTK stuff.
Yeah.
And this one's like, oh, boy, it's heavy.
You got to take
heavy here.
Probably not binging 4 at a time, presumably.
No, it's funny. Like
to it.
About midway through every episode, I'm like, okay, all right. I'm not done, but I'm done for the night.
Done for now.
And then what a great doc, and it's not a doc, but what a great series always does. Is at the end, you're like, oh well, I got to keep watching.
I guess I'll watch the next one. I mean, already here on the couch.
So that happens.
Emotional damage has already landed.
Yes.
All right, very good. Well, so let's do shot clock reviews then on things other than Dahmer. Is that what the show's called? Is it called Dahmer? Jeffrey Dahmer? Something? I don't know.
I think it is just Dahmer, isn't it?
Yeah, that seems right. Who feels like they want to be shot out of a cannon first here? Who's got one they're feeling right now? I'll go first.
Okay.
My first shot clock review is of QBcompare.com. I'd like to give a shout out to Jordan Williams at JordanW0213 on Twitter. After the initial round of conversations involving Patrick Mahomes and a Hall of Fame quarterback who will remain nameless for now, he made this website, QBcompare.com. You can pick any 2 quarterbacks and type them in, and I could tell you something like the fact that Patrick Mahomes has started 29.4% of John Elway's games, has 55.3% of his passing touchdowns.
That's where you're getting your fodder.
It started with the math on pen and paper. Now we have it at QBcompare.com. Sorry, fair enough. It is unfortunately, you know what? It's a 33 out of 10. 33% out of 10.
I get it.
I love QBcompare.com. Appreciate Jordan for doing the Lord's work there. Mick, what's your first shot clock review?
I'm going to review my co-anchor Kevin Holmes and his efforts to get Governor Mike Parson on our 6 o'clock show live from Arrowhead on Monday night.
Oh my God, okay.
My impression of Kevin when he sees Governor Parson surrounded by layers of security. Mike! Mike, come over here! And I'm like, Kevin, he's not going to come over here. We have 30 seconds before it's back to us. Mike, come over here! This actually went over the air. Are we still in the air? And that actually went over the air. And I said, it's just not going to happen. He somehow drags him away from somebody else's interview. Can I get a rebound?
I want a rebound. You can do this for 2 minutes.
There's another station interviewing him. Kevin goes, doesn't matter. We're live. We take precedence. That's not a thing.
That's not
Not
true.
a thing. They drag him away,
bankruptcy.
security, And I immediately take off my headset and I give it to Mike Parson, and he sits there and has a great segment with Kevin Holmes. We went like 3 minutes over in like a 22-minute show, which is a huge deal, but we got the governor on live.
What's the rating for Kevin?
How about this? It's a
13 out of 10.
It's a 90. No, it's a 95 out of 10. And I'm talking decibels.
Okay, very good.
Because
Right
he's
in your
just
ear.
the loudest human on the planet, and he's persistent. And I was like, you're not going to get the governor. I mean, there's guys with sunglasses and earpieces surrounding him, right, looking for idiots like that, yelling at him. But Mike sees him, and he walks on over, and they talk about football, and they talk about maybe a couple political questions. I don't know. But it was really cool. It was really funny because at 5 o'clock we had fake Andy Reid on who walked by. I grabbed him, and he came on. That's my level.
Hey, fake Andy!
That's it.
Fakey!
And at 4 o'clock we started out with a mascot of a Gates barbecue sauce bottle.
Unbelievable.
Have you seen those?
No.
Steve Walls a lot of times will be walking around with them, and so. That we graduated from the mascot of the barbecue sauce to fake Andy Reid to real Mike Parson.
Unbelievable.
There you go.
You're just as good a journalist as Kevin. I mean, really, you guys have the same chops.
Same chops.
Really incredible.
He was not going to take no for an answer, even if it was from the cops and pulling it away from another TV station.
On live
television. We're live! They're on tape!
We're live!
Afterward, we talked about it. It's like, that's what you do, right? I'm like, I've never pulled somebody away from somebody else's interview because I was live.
It must be incredible to live your life with that kind of self-confidence. I'm only going to know about it from stories like that. Yeah, I'm never going to be able to experience it firsthand, but man, it's incredible
He
to hear
nailed
about.
it. We got him on.
Beards, what's your first shot clock review?
My first one, I'm going to talk about the NBA offseason because the NBA season starts in 6 days. It was pretty wild of an offseason. The Jazz blew up. Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert went away. Kevin Durant almost moved. Josh, he was almost the Sun, but not really.
Yeah.
Speaking of the Suns, they're not gonna
total eclipse.
Totally fine. They're totally fine. We don't have to talk about the Celtics. Meanwhile,
how's Jaylen Brown's Twitter right now?
It's not great. I'd give it an 8 out of 10. It was a pretty good offseason. This crazy stuff happened.
You don't want to talk about you want me to do a shot clock review of Jaylen Brown?
Celtics coach Joe.
The Celtics. Yeah, Babe Beards. Yeah, where's Ime Udoka? Brad Stevens coming back down out of the booth.
Joe Mazzulla.
How about your 15-year-old Celtics son, Celtics fan, who's also your son, asking you about Udoka? And saying, well, so he just had an affair. I'm like, I don't know.
We legit don't know.
I don't know. I think the first thing I thought of it was, it's probably who it was with, and maybe not that it happened, but I don't know still.
It sounds like it wasn't good.
You know what just hit me, Beards?
What?
Rudy's obviously not here, but Rudy's team had by far the best offseason of us as a trio by 100,000 miles.
The Celtics had the best offseason up until about 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, when the offseason was still ongoing.
Yeah.
Here's my my final shot clock review of the day. It is an album called Never Had to Leave by Matt Mason. This is just a serious Josh. You can hit it whenever.
I know Matt Mason.
Do you really? Yeah. He's in town on Saturday, and I realized I was late to the ticket table, and so I'm gonna check out our friends at ticketsforless.com and see what they got cooking over there because he's excellent. This album is really tremendous. It is a real evolution of like a singer-songwriter vibe into something more musically complex than that usually gives credit for, and also lyrically absolutely deep. This whole album is excellent. The song Sanctified is just an absolute hammer drop. The album's great. I'm giving it an 8 out of 10 because I've been very impressed by Matt Mason. Mick, second shot clock review.
I'm just looking up. Yeah, I know a couple of his songs.
Cringe was big, and
Hallucinogenics.
was big, and I just don't care that much. There's a remix of, I think it's a remix of Cringe. That's a Grandson remix. Really excellent. Full recommendation for pretty much anybody. This isn't like a Josh's weird music take thing. I think most people would like that.
Okay. Ready?
Ready.
I'm gonna shout out Dion Bush.
Okay.
For my shot clock review. Underrated play. He went low on Devontae Adams on that catch that wasn't a catch that led to the last play of the game, the incompletion. If he would have gone high, Devontae Adams' right foot would have stayed in. He wouldn't have had to try to jump over Dion Bush. and with the bobble, had that second foot land out of bounds. So shout out Deion Bush. Well done. Little things are big things, and it wasn't this game. I give it a 10. I'm done being witty.
Fears, last shot clock review.
My last one will be about the Death on the Nile movie that came out.
Oh, yeah. Don't spoil it.
No, I'm not going to spoil it.
It's only been out for a year.
My wife and I were watching this together because we were kind of just like looking for something to watch online. It's pretty good. The costumes were great. It was really weird though about near the end of the movie, they killed somebody. But then they never solved it, and I guess that's mainly just because my wife was like, you know what, I don't like this movie, we're going to turn it off now. So what of it I saw, I enjoyed. I'd give it like a 7 out of 10. The ending for me just kind of sucked. Yeah. I never saw it.
So you were physically...
I know what happened, though, because I'd seen the previous version of it years ago.
You were physically incapable of spoiling this version of the movie.
I know what happened, but that's because but yes.
You had to read about it on Wikipedia after the fact. Hilarious. There you go. Shot clock reviews here on The Zone. And you know what I need to do really quick? I want to give just one quick piece of hardware out. This is great work by all of us, but clearly there was one singular MVP from the game on Monday night. Mick, it was clearly Mick. Who was the MVP on Monday night, Mick, for the Kansas City Chiefs? Honestly, I'm letting you either pick between Travis Kelce or Deion Bush if you want.
Travis Kelce.
Travis Kelce gets the ring. Hopefully, I won't be the last one to give him one. I don't mean in the marital sense. I'm not sure.
Is this a thing we're doing now?
This is the thing. Oh, who gets the ring is every week because of our friends at Ruback Fine Jewelry, Mick. Our friends at Ruback Fine Jewelry, they're the place that if you don't want just a hypothetical ring, if you want like a good one that they will custom make for your loved one, if you have a holiday proposal perhaps coming up, please don't waste your time anywhere else. This is, hey, let's send, to steal a phrase from my brother and me, let's send Jokes out of the room. Jokes isn't in here right now, okay? We're in serious talk time. I'm looking at the camera. Don't waste your time anywhere else. Ruback is going to get you what you need and then some. I was a deer in the headlights for the engagement ring process. I walked into Ruback. I talked to Hal. I made an appointment online. They're by appointment only. It's nice that way. And I talked to Hal. He guided me through that whole process. Renee's final ring. She's now fiancée Renee, so it worked. Her ring is incredible. The process was tremendous. And you could not do better for yourself or for your loved one than to go to Ruback Fine Jewelry. Plus, maybe you're just looking for like a banger Christmas gift, Mick. I don't know. You're trying to maybe impress the wife for the first time in a while. A little Ruback box under the Christmas tree. Put it in the stocking. I'm just saying. She doesn't have to hear this, but maybe you should think about it.
Yeah, I'll go to the box.
I'll let you put a ring pop in it or something.
Yeah, I should never know the difference.
And then for your next wife, you can go to Ruback Fine Jewelry for the ring. Ruback Fine Jewelry, ruback.co. Great gifts for the holidays, an incredible experience if a custom engagement ring is what you're thinking about. If you don't believe me, check out the reviews. Every review who's been placed, everyone who's walked out of the door has given that place a 5 out of 5. I would give them a 10 out of 10 if we were doing shot clock reviews for Ruback Fine Jewelry. Go check them out. Make your appointment online at ruback.co. That's ruback.co.
Take the show with you by listening live on 810WHB.com, in the 810 mobile app, or by subscribing to The Zone wherever you get your podcasts. The Zone with Jason Anderson.
But you like just open the door a little bit and sort of stick your face out. And you're like, hey, hi, how are you? I'm like, hi, I am Herbert Hoover with Hoover Vacuums. Would you like a vacuum today? And we're like, no, I really don't. Be like, oh, but we're Kansas football. We really suck.
You made Herbert Hoover a vacuum salesman?
On Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Mick Shaffer with us a little longer here today in the Zone. A few more minutes without Jason Anderson. He'll be back tomorrow.
My Hoover is torn apart. I'm trying to fix it.
Trying to fix your vacuum?
The motor went out on the brush, basically, that turns the belt, that turns the brush. It is taken apart, and I went to a vacuum store. They exist.
They still exist.
Went to one yesterday. They didn't have replacement, and so it's looking like the new motor is about the same price as a new vacuum.
This is where I ended up when I was trying to fix my my washing machine a little while ago.
Woof.
Wasn't worth it. Can I get a breakdown of the Devontae Adams shove? What you would add here? We got a minute. We got a minute. It's all yours. Not a photographer?
D-Bag probably was not a photographer. He's carrying a C-stand, which is one of the most awkward pieces of equipment you have in television. A lot of times you set it up on lights or whatever. We think it was probably an ESPN guy who was following around their
sound guy?
No, not the boom mic guy, but the Steadicam guy. A lot of times they'll hang their rig on that C-stand, and was probably just trying to get into place for the post-game show.
Sure.
And it's chaos down there. There's like 100 players trying to leave, and 50-plus coaches and staff and all that stuff, and media all over the place. And so, yeah, people are going to walk in front of other people. God forbid. Oh, I've heard he clearly didn't see him. Oh, really? He was just pushing air at that point?
Yeah, he was just shoving air.
Yeah.
Sort of Carl Cheffers. Not really seeing anything, just assault.
Good point.
Thanks, Mick.
Hi, guys. It's Andrew. Are you...